February 18th, 2025, St. Clair Shores City Council to order. Abby, please call the roll.
Mayor Walby.
Here.
Councilmember Burgess.
Here.
Councilmember Karen.
Here.
Councilmember Frederick.
Present.
Councilmember Rubello.
Present.
Councilmember Rusi.
Here.
And Councilmember Vitale.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have item 2, which 2A is a proclamation. So we have an exciting proclamation for Evelyn Frederick, who turned 100. So I know Councilman Frederick's going to help his mom. And cool. Oh. Hello. Wow. Jeez. She wants never change. Right? Get in the house.
Turn around, sit down.
I sit now.
Yeah. All right. And here you get to hold these. Some flowers, some little spring flowers.
We also have Senator Hertel here, so come on up, Senator. And how are you, Mrs. Frederick?
Fine.
Fantastic. Great to see you.
Oh, I said I felt like I was home. I used to come here so much.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I know you'd make this feel like at home, so we're going to read all that. But we're going to kick this off, Mrs. Frederick. We have Senator Hertel from Lansing here.
Kevin, right?
Hi, Mrs. Frederick. Good to see you.
Hold on, Senator.
Thank you, Mayor. Mrs. Frederick, we have a tribute here for you. In special tribute, this document is signed and dedicated to honor and commend Evelyn Frederick upon the occasion of her 100th birthday. May she know of our admiration and best wishes for her celebration.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is signed by myself, our Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, and the Governor of the State of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
You want to blow those out real fast?
Oh, yeah, okay.
All right, Mom, we have a cake for you too. How about this?
Well, when we have a cake, you know what we got to do.
Gotta sing happy
Yeah,
birthday.
come.
All right.
So, ready?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mrs. Frederick. Happy birthday to you. All right, you wanna? Yeah. Why don't you go ahead?
Wow, that's pretty good. That was great. Got good lung strength and honor, for God's sakes.
That's all that yelling at us. Yeah. Get in here. So now the mayor's got
Yep, I'll go, then I'll read it, okay?
the mayor's got.
The mayor has a proclamation for you, too.
All right, I'm going to read this to you, okay?
Okay.
I got my mic on, okay. Proclamation to Evelyn Julia Frederick. Whereas the mayor and council of the city of St. Clair Shores do hereby wish to recognize Evelyn Frederick on the celebration of her 100th birthday. Evelyn was born February 21st, 1925, to John and Rose Rostoni in Detroit, Michigan, and grew up traveling the state of Michigan with her parents, who were part of a road building company where John was a mechanic and Rose ran a boarding house. Evelyn helped her parents by preparing food and doing laundry for the workers. After attending many different elementary schools, she graduated from Southeastern High School in 1942. Evelyn met Casper Frederick as he was discharged from the Navy after World War II, and they married January 25th, 1947. They moved from Detroit to St. Clair Shores in 1955, where Casper and Evelyn's help began a long-serving city councilman. Evelyn and Casper were dedicated volunteers to Avalon Elementary School, the Boy Scouts, and were instrumental in starting the Avalon Little League, Their son Donald was born in January of 1948 and was an exceptional athlete at South Lake High School and played on the Eastern Michigan University National Championship baseball team. Their son Ronald was born in April of 1955 and is retired advertising executive and a current St. Clair Shores councilman, like his father, serving more than 20 years. Whereas during her lifetime, Evelyn enjoyed dancing with her husband, Casper, roller skating, bowling, golf, boating, fishing, and visiting the family cottage. She was an exceptional caregiver to both her father and husband during their illnesses. She is still active and interested in politics. Evelyn spends time with her 5 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren attending sporting, school, and dance events. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Council of the City of St. Clair Shores, on behalf of all our residents, wish a happy 100th birthday to Evelyn Julia Frederick and offer sincere best wishes for continued good health and happiness. God bless you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
We have one, oh, let me grab the mic.
What do you got, another
We have one,
We got one more for you.
My God, what did I do?
one more. Well, you did a lot over the years. So this one here is from Mark Hackle, our county executive, and it's a certificate of recognition on your 100th birthday to Evelyn Julia Frederick. Congratulations. It's an honor to celebrate this remarkable milestone in your life. Happy birthday. How about that, huh? So you got a lot of stuff here now. So I guess this is a great honor for our family and really for everyone who's out there celebrating, you know, those big birthdays, whether it's 90, 95, 100, whatever. But, you know, it's been a long time, and she has been a staunch St. Clair Shores promoter. No matter where we go, we talk about St. Clair Shores, and sometimes she's bringing it up and making sure people know what a great city that we have here. So I want to personally thank you for everything you've done for me throughout my life. And then, you know, as you can see, you got a great big family over there with my wife, Dar, and you got Sammy and Andy and Brent and the whole crew. So way to go. Happy birthday. And, we just want to thank everybody up here, the council, and you know some of the people who've been here for a long time who even knew my dad. Right? Sorry, Bob. And
Well, can you, I mean, we think sometimes it's bad, but she's endured twice, right? She had to endure with Casper. Now, you may be I think you're the only father-son?
I don't know, possibly.
I tried to look back. I think
right.
you probably are the only father-son. So, I mean, just think what she's had to endure for like 40 years. And matter of fact, I was going through, as this year is the 50th anniversary of the St. Clair Shores Golf Course,
Right.
which is May 18th, 1975. And we got a great picture of, was then Mayor Frank McFarland, but your dad was on that,
that's
body.
great.
And we're going to put that picture on, one of many in the building. But it was
Over at the golf course?
Yes, but it was
I can't
cool to
wait.
see your dad in there.
Oh yeah, he was a busy guy, and he's another one loved to golf too. And they used to golf together over there. So that's awesome.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Well, thank you everybody. Appreciate it.
Did she ever
All my
ground
colleagues. What's that?
you? Did she ever ground you?
Yes.
Just last week, in fact.
I got special permission to get out to come here.
Is this an opportunity we get to?
I was so, it's just like home. I used to come here all the time.
Sure
remember?
did.
There you go.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Mom. We're gonna get you.
Let me get this one back here. You can hold, someone will hold that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I can get up now.
Try not to knock you over.
Yeah, they don't need it though. Or...
Right.
And by the way, we have cake if anybody wants cake. I know this council's never shy about taking snacks.
Who's cutting it?
It's already cut, over there.
Pre-cut.
After the A Pisces.
So
You lived 100 years, huh?
2B is the Consumers Energy presentation. Lauren and Stephen from Consumers Energy are here. Oh, it is.
A hard act to follow.
A utility company. Good luck.
Right.
Can't be
We
good.
should, I guess we should have brought cake. Well, good evening, council and mayor. I'm Lauren Brosh. I'm the Community Affairs Manager for Consumers Energy. And I'm here tonight with Steve Soria. He is the project manager for Consumers Energy and managing this project specifically about what we're talking here tonight. So we are here to share some information about an upcoming natural gas project that's going to be happening in your city. This presentation is really served as proactive communication to inform the public about what's going to be happening as well as the city. And we just want to make you aware of this project that's happening this spring. The project will be in 3 phases. So it's projected to start in April or May of 2025, and the current phase will be projected to be completed the end of this year. So all 3 phases will be anticipated to be done by 2027. So this is a multi-year project. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on the current phase that'll be happening this year. So we're going to discuss the overview, scope of the project, our restoration plan, communication plan, and public safety as well. Really, this project is just going to help us continue to provide safe and reliable natural gas to all of your customers, our customers, your residents, and businesses. So to start, this is just a quick overview of our natural gas system as well as our service territory. As you can see, Consumers Energy, we serve about 1.8 million customers throughout Michigan with our natural gas service. About 300,000 of those customers are here in Macomb County. We also have about 27,000 miles of distribution pipeline as well as over 2,000 miles of service pipeline. So essentially, that's just a lot of pipeline that we need to maintain safely and continue to upgrade, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. So the pipeline that we'll be focusing on is the line 1009. It's a high-pressure pipeline, and we will be replacing that pipeline this spring. So I'm going to have Steve come up and talk to you about what that process is going to look like and kind of walk through the construction process as well as timeline for the project and just what it's going to look like overall. So Steve, have you come up?
Yeah, there you go. So these are the lines that we'll be working
Stevie,
on.
would you grab right in that mic, pull that mic, thank you.
So these are the lines that we're going to be working on. We're going to start over there at I-94 in Roseville, cross 94, come over there down to Little Mac, and we're going to go up to 10 Mile, and then, south to 10 Mile, and then north to 11 Mile up there. So this is federally regulated. We're regulated not only by the state, but it's PHMSA, which is the federal arm of the government, U.S. Department of Transportation. So in order to have aging infrastructure that's in question here, we're required to replace all these lines. So these are it's on the Frazo, it's a 12-inch high-pressure line that runs across on the north side, and then we're going to cross over to Little Mac, and then we'll have an 8-inch line, high pressure, that runs north and south over there. So these are an integral part of the system. It's not a distribution system. It's a distribution system for the distribution pipeline in the sense it goes to a station, and then the distribution pipeline, which feeds the customers, is what everybody is serviced off of. So these are the main, they're like, I don't want to say transmission lines, but they're part of the transmission. So it's a bigger part of the infrastructure. So when we're replacing these lines, it's going to be a lot of work. It's steel pipe. They're probably going to end up stringing pipe and then boring it underneath the sidewalk as much as possible. And then, so there will be some inconvenience to the residents. So mostly it'll be, our contractor will be in contact with the residents as we go along. They'll have enough lead time to understand there could be blockages of driveways due to the amount of pipe that needs to go in. So we'll work with the residents to make sure that everybody has some sort of a plan if they have a safety issue or something where they need to get out or something like that. So it'll be well-planned. There'll also be a lot of communication going on with our contractor to the residents as we move along.
So you're going to notify them before you're in front of their driveway so they can't get out?
Yes, we will be doing that. One of the good things is that there's nobody that's serviced off these lines, okay? But it's still an inconvenience to the city with the construction and all that stuff like that. We will be accessing sewers. We need, anything that we cross over, we got to make sure we don't want any damages to anything or inconvenience to anybody. So the residents will be notified, hey, we need to come in, check out your sewer leads. We'll work with the city. When they call in the misdig staking, they'll stake all the utilities that will be in the area and in conflict and everything. So in general, it should go pretty smooth. We work with Denise in St. Clair Shores pretty good, and we're just here just to kind of get a good rapport going with the city, so we can, understand, how the customers feel and stuff like that about with the utility company.
So you'll have the construction meetings with Denise on a how often?
Well,
I mean,
we don't really have planned construction meetings. We'll go through the permit process, okay? So as we go through the permit process, then we can keep in touch and say, hey, we're gonna start this project in April. Looks like we're gonna start it in April. And it's probably gonna go, I don't know, maybe not till the end of the year, but into the late summer. So it's a long process here. And this is just phase 2 of 2 other phases that are after this one here.
okay.
Questions?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Karen?
Thank you.
Concerns?
Yeah, so in terms of the property restoration afterward, what specification do you guys use for, the grass that gets torn up?
So that would be dictated kind of by, we'd probably just seed, most
You
likely.
do, we prefer sod.
Sod?
We push in our own projects to do sod, just because seed, there's different specs that are out there, it doesn't come in right.
Agreed.
Right? So, but as you disturb, are you gonna do all the restoration towards the end, or can it be done in phases?
So the way they plan on doing it is when as they start and move from I-94, moving east to Little Mac, as they go along, get phases done, they're gonna do the restoration as they go. So they'll be a little bit ahead, but as they say, hey, we're done in this area back here, we're gonna restore everything that needs to be
Do
restored.
you need to disturb any sidewalks or drive
There's
approaches?
gonna be some disturbance of the sidewalk,
Okay,
yes.
and-
Driveways, no, we'll try to stay out of the private property area, but that right of way over there on Little Mac, it varies quite a bit over back in there.
Can you restore the sidewalks in the same manner of like, as you get a section done, have your concrete supplier come in to do those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can do
Because we've
that.
had issues in the past where
Understood.
sidewalks weren't restored and they went through an entire winter with just like blacktop
Right.
over them, right?
So a couple of good things are going on with this, right? Is that we're doing it in the nice weather time. So we're doing it in the spring and the fall, so the restoration will be moving just right along with the project, so we won't have the issues like frigid winter and stuff like that. You can't restore sidewalk. It's hard to restore it, to get it to take.
Exactly,
when
right.
it's-
Well, and that's
the
kind of why it's like, don't want you to wait
Yeah,
to try to do it
exactly.
all if you end up running into late fall.
Right.
And we can't pour concrete, right? So,
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So this is an example of what a town.
Lauren,
you need to be by the mic there.
thank you.
Thank you.
Apologies.
So this is a temporary restoration example of what they would lay down before they do a permanent fix. So in the case, they try to stay about a week behind the construction process. So Colts MUE is going to be our contractor on this project, and they'll be completing the restoration as well. We'll be working very closely with them. So they will follow behind about a week, but this is an example of what that sidewalk repair would look like, whether they get to the temporary before the permanent, so just to have a visual there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
We are requesting sod.
Yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that, any sod replacements.
Hopefully there's not gonna be a lot of.
Okay.
per se.
Mr. Rubello?
Thanks, Mayor. This is actually going on in a lot of different counties in the state of Michigan. This isn't just a St. Clair Shores thing. It looked like you had like 17 counties that are doing this thing.
That is correct.
So almost like 2 million people.
Yeah,
So-
so due to the aging infrastructure that consumers has and the federal regulation with the U.S. Department of Transportation, they're dictating that we do these projects. So, I mean, believe me, consumers, it'd be nice to leave it there, but it's for the safety. The safer the infrastructure is, the safer the public is. So basically, it's all based on safety.
You're just really replacing old stuff that's been in there a long time.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things, I know Councilman Karen touched on the lawn. What about if people have sprinklers and things like that?
So
And
we
there's
should-
damage done and,
Yeah, we'll be responsible for all damages, but we shouldn't be on any private property at all. We're gonna be right in the road right away.
okay.
So there should be no disturbance of sprinklers or anything like that.
You know it goes, under the road, you know what's under
No-
there and
No
stuff.
trees, we don't plan on taking out any trees or anything like that. Less disturbance as possible.
What
We
about-
understand it's a major inconvenience for the residents.
And I'm not sure, did you mention, is there a hotline or something for the residents in case they're having issues getting in and off their property? Because I remember a while back, we had done work on Little Mac, and some people couldn't get into their driveways. So how are you planning on
So, go ahead.
helping them?
Yeah, so part of that is going to be our contractor. They're going to be knocking on doors and having face-to-face conversations with every resident that's going to be impacted by the project. So they will be out there well in advance providing information so that the residents not only know exactly when it's coming, they have somebody that they can communicate with. Also, staying in contact with Denise in the city, they can always reach out to myself. You have my information, and I can get in contact with the contractor or project manager, Steve. So there's multiple forms of communication. So, just wanted to talk about contact. So not only the door knocking, but, I'm happy to provide social media posts if the city wants to post about the project, so that residents can easily see what's going on,
I think
because,
that'll be a good idea.
yeah, this will be a very visible project,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, that was actually one of my next questions about if SCS TV can do something for,
Yeah.
like a heads up.
Yeah,
things
we're
like that.
happy to do that, provide information that you can post on your website. Again, so just another access for residents to view that.
And at the end of the day, how does this impact our residents? Like, what is the final goal, of what you're doing? I know it's, natural gas reliability and all that type of stuff, but,
The impact is just a safer and more reliable distribution system for all the people that are using the gas system. So basically, that's what it is.
and it starts in April, you said?
It does.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Supposedly, that's when we're proposing.
Mr. Vitale?
Yeah, early on, you mentioned something about boring under sidewalks. So do you plan to do that?
Correct, it's gonna be a complete drill bore shot all the way.
Well, my concern with that is that soil gets replaced, so that 2 years down the road, we don't have sidewalks that are cracking. Ultimately, our residents are responsible for the sidewalks.
Well, we'll be responsible for the compaction, to make sure that it meets the standards that you need to have,
Are you going to be able to provide addresses to our community development department where you're working? When when you have a project completed or something, or section completed? So we could maybe have our city engineer come out there, make sure that soil is there?
Well, wouldn't they have inspectors on site as we go do the work and stuff for the city to inspect?
We can certainly work with consumers.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, so that's my concern, is that where you go under sidewalks, that we don't have subsidence issues or something like that.
Right.
And then they crack and pop a couple years later. Because the other issue too is that, of course, we're concerned about residents and inconveniencing them and being able to access their driveway, but this is ultimately our property, the city's property on these easements. So, we need to be sure that it's restored. I can tell you, as someone who owns a piece of property that was abutting a consumer's project, you guys did a terrible job. Replaced sidewalk, the dirt was never replaced. All kinds of spoils and cement was left behind. It was terrible. It was garbage. So I know that was a kind of a spot job. It wasn't a big project, so probably didn't get the attention that this does. But I guess we're putting you on notice that we've already noticed the work in the past.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the construction source was for that job. So alls I know is that we are using our contractor on this, so it's a little bit different than the other resources that we do use sometimes. And sometimes in emergencies, it's emergency. It's got to be taken care of right away, so.
Well, I understand that. It's what was left afterwards. I mean, obviously, pouring the sidewalk wasn't an emergency, and filling it back in wasn't an emergency, but it still should have been done.
So was it a time of the year when it could have been restored in a normal?
Well, it's been 2 years now, so
Does
it's
it-
mostly just filled itself back in at this point.
Okay. Yeah, and, we understand that restoration has been an issue with the city, so it is something that we addressed, I believe last year we came and spoke, and something that we definitely are working on.
Well, you'll at least give us the addresses of where you're going to be working, which is more than I can say for the other utilities that services this city.
Yep, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Ms. Rusi.
Make sure we follow up on the restoration. I know that's important with the
It
city.
is.
It really has been a pain point, I'll be honest with you.
Right.
It's been a pain point.
Yeah.
So when we get the contractor out there, we'll make sure that we just try to just keep going and stick to our word.
Yeah, I know there's a hierarchy of cities. We're one of the ones that care.
We all care, and we're trying to make a good relationship with the city. We
Good.
really are. We've been working diligently to try to come up with the restorations. I get the emails too, I see it. They've been has it been getting better? It's been getting better, but we could do better.
You're doing better than DTE, but that's a low bar, so I'll, all right,
take it.
thank you.
Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. Not to belabor the point, but I do have a lot of questions and points about the restoration too. It seems like two of the big issues, any of the utility projects, at least ones that hit us, are notification that residents get beforehand in terms of timeliness and completeness, and then also when the project is over, the restoration, both the quality and then the timeliness of that. So I guess first off, you're going to be taking, just want to confirm, you're going to take before pictures, footage, everything of the site before a disturbance is made. So we have a record, you have a record of the areas and what quality and shape they were in prior to your work on there, correct?
I don't know if we could probably do something.
Yeah, we probably want to pre-work footage, pictures, whatever, of the areas you're going to work on. When we do certain projects, we've even had someone walk around with a, video camera, just cameraing it so we can look at the footage. If there are complaints afterwards of they didn't restore it to how it was, things like that, we have footage. And it helps you guys and it helps us too, and it helps the residents. So it's kind of a safety due diligence type thing that for everybody, just to make sure when we hear it used to be like this, we can look and say, yes, it did, get back to this, or no, actually, it was more like this.
That's a good idea, and nobody's ever brought that up before. It's possibly something that we could do, I guess.
I think it helps you and it helps everybody, it helps the city, it helps the residents. I think there's no downside to it besides a little extra time and money, but I think it's an investment for your company.
Keeps everybody honest, right?
And that's the goal, right?
Yeah, we can talk to the
So in
contractor.
terms of the temporary sidewalk, the temporary one, it was on a previous slide. How long would the residents have to live with the resident temporary before it becomes permanent? Because I will say the temporary, we will get complaints about that. That's left for a long time. I've seen people believe that the temporary work is the permit work and complain all the time, and you have to tell them, no, it's not. The permit fits. This isn't, it's going to be restored to how it was. This isn't temporary. So how long will people have to live with the left before they get the right?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. I mean, I know that they just plan on constructing.
Okay, get closer to the microphone, I'm
I know
sorry.
they plan on constructing okay? And then going back and doing the restoration as it goes, so they'll say, hey, we're done here. We just keep moving. So if we keep that method in progress, it should go a lot smoother. And I don't really anticipate a lot of, disruption but there's gonna be some. It's construction.
Well, absolutely, and people, you know what, and our residents have lived through construction from the city side, from the utilities, everything, they're very understanding when it's handled reasonably and timely, and, like people care about their property and the disruption it's causing them. So, I had written down too, and you covered already the communication updates, share, give the city things to share on Facebook. We have website. We have a lot of very active social media sites where the more information we could get out to head on any questions or concerns, like what would be super helpful. I'm glad to hear there's going to be some door knocking. However, one of the considerations you get when you get people coming up to the door, especially nowadays, we all know what happens. Not that long ago, the contractors, the crew, they'll be clearly ID'd, right? They will be very obvious to people that they are here and legitimately from the company and not people trying to scam, correct?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that you brought that up. I did want to touch on the public safety aspect because of the imposter situation that happened a few months ago. Unfortunately, we want the public to stay very vigilant and, be able to identify a Consumers Energy employee as well as a contractor. There is this 800 number that you can call, any resident can call at any time to confirm that either a contractor or a Consumers Energy employee is on your property valid. And they always will carry a badge. They will wear a Consumers Energy, logo, or in this case, it'll be our contractor, Cults MUE, which is why we wanted to present that information as well. So happy to share this. You can share this out on social media as well. The 800 number is very helpful moving forward with public safety and concerns.
When the project begins, when door knocking is going to begin for, if you could let Denise know, we should probably put that on the city website too, giving people a heads up so they have the information handy. One of the things when we do on the city for water projects, things like that I have heard nowadays with a lot of people have Ring doorbells. A lot of people find it helpful, given they may not be home or may not be answering, as if the person holds a flyer up to the Ring doorbell or the ID, so they have the recorded record of it. And if they're not home and they get the notification, they know what the person is there doing. They don't have to rely on looking at the flyer stuck on their door because you have to be home to do that. So if you could advise the people maybe to hold up to the Ring doorbell, that would get ahead of a lot of people of, oh my God, someone's at my door, I don't recognize them. Does anyone know why? They would know what that's related to this project and who they are. And that way there's also a record of it too, recorded on their doorbell. So that might be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and we can relay that to cults to make sure that they're
Yeah, you
flashing
take
that
advantage
badge.
of the technology that's available. A lot of people do have those, and those come, again, to protect you guys and to protect the residents too. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Burgess.
I know, can you go back to the slide after the temporary? Right there, the notice one. Yep. Okay, so you said that your notification through like social media templates, your door knocking, is there going to be any kind of mailer?
There is not. Typically, we do mailing if we have customers that are going to be disrupted with their gas service. So because of this type of project, there is no gas service disruption. There's no need for our workers to be up at the home or in the home. So that is when we send out, those types of mailings. So this is the type of notification and public notice.
My only concern is we do have a lot of older residents, and let's say they're not home, they're out of town, and I don't use my front door very often.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing something and you're leaving it at the front door, and I'm going in through my garage door and I'm not seeing the notice I wasn't home, and then they show up and they have it so that I can't leave my driveway.
Yeah.
I just wondered if there was making sure that, you have a checklist that this resident is knowing that we're going to be there and possibly not be able to leave their house because of the disruption.
Yeah, our contractor will be there well in advance. It was a week.
Yeah,
Or
they
so-
said-
a week in advance?
They were gonna give advance notice. So if there was gonna be any disruption of access to the driveways, they would be out there giving them a notice in advance, say, hey, next week, we're coming down here, so just be aware. Maybe you can park on the side street, you know. They did say if there was a case of an emergency that needed, they would work with them to try to help them get out, however that would be. So that's a priority for us, to make sure that it's the least amount of inconvenience on the residents as possible.
I
It's
just
a big
remember like
project.
some of the other things that have happened in the city, and you see it on the residents page. You know, they say they notified, you know, they said ahead of time they were gonna notify, and then you have these residents going, I can't get out of my driveway, and I had no idea they were doing this today. I mean, I'm just
Yeah.
not saying that
And-
it's gonna happen, but I just wondered if there was any other way, because, you know, a lot of people aren't on social media. They're not gonna check the city website to see what's coming up in the city, just to make sure. I know that a lot of residents won't be impacted, but the ones that will actually, make sure that they actually talk to somebody.
Yeah, and the contractors, they'll be out there all day during the week so that, you know, there's always somebody on site and available to speak with face to face. You know, if a customer comes home and sees that there's the pipe in the driveway, you know, they're not gonna be leaving it overnight. So they'll be on site, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Mr. Frederick.
Thanks, Mayor. So, a couple things. First off, do we know what side of Little Mac it's going down in Frazo?
East side.
East side, so,
North side, it'll be a 12-inch pipe on the north side on Fraser,
okay,
and then it'll be 8-inch pipe on the east side.
on the east
of
side.
Little
All
Mac.
right,
Yes.
just so we know that whoever's watching, you know, if you're on the west side, you're kind of free and clear, right?
Yeah.
It's the other side. And then a couple other things too, you know, no matter how many times we notify people, and every different way we notify people, we do have somebody from the St. Clair Shore Sentinel here tonight, which would be a good person for you to get to know. Maybe there'd be a story that we could write or some kind of press release. Alyssa, yeah. And also on the badges, I understand there's holograms out there or possibly even QR codes that you can put on the badge. Maybe that's something you could use for the Ring doorbell. That would be an interesting way for you guys to, you know, take it to the next step. And then this is what we use when we have a water main break, which it seems like we're having a lot of them lately, but this is what ends up on your door. And I get it if you don't go through that front door, but something like this would be good for you guys to leave at the house, so that, and the biggest thing here is to put the phone numbers on it, just in case. I know we don't want to leave a pipe, but who knows, right? Sometimes you might have to, you know, some emergency happens or whatever. So if we can get those numbers, and then the other biggest thing is making sure that, you know, I've got my firefighter son in the audience, so I got to ask about, you know, emergency vehicle ingress, egress to these properties. We want to make sure that, you know, that is, you're cognizant of making sure that nothing's going to get in the way of those guys doing their job.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's, safety's always a big issue for us. So we'll take all that stuff into consideration. We've been trying to work with the city and had meetings outside of this, understanding, like you were talking about the door tags. We have other projects where we would tag the front door. We'll come to find out, most of the people don't use the front door.
Right.
So we're learning by experience as we do our projects. You know, it's a learning curve, right?
Right.
So we're trying to get better at everything
I
we're
guess,
doing.
I guess my point was, do all of it. Social media, give us some of the stuff. We can do some things on not only on our website, but on Facebook and some of the other social platforms that the city has. And then also St. Clair Shore Sentinel, which goes to every home. And, you know, who knows who's telling who about what's happening, right? So, oh, hey, I heard you got this thing going in front of your house next week. You know, they may not have known. So use the more is better in this case, right? As many as possible, not just, well, people to go in the front door, so we're not going to do this at all. No, you should do that too. So anyway, that's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. Have a good evening. We hopefully, it's a quick project and not very disturbing, the best you can, so,
And thank you for your input.
thank you. We're going to get here to audience participation. The Frederick family here, you're sticking it out here, okay? I just, here's your chance. I'm going to give you your chance here to,
Just hand out cake.
yeah. You want to go, you can go here, and before I keep going on the meeting.
No, don't. You guys want to go?
Sure seems that way.
Putting the
Carl
coats
says
on.
you want to go.
Just hang on for a moment, then we'll.
She told me.
Watching it
Oh,
live, it's
oh,
like
yeah.
a stage show.
This is like better. Exactly. This isn't the movie, this is theater.
Yeah.
Grab some cake.
Yeah, get some.
Grab
Take some cake, take some cake with you.
Well, yeah, you should see me.
Brent, you gotta take some for Emily, you know, she'll be mad if she finds out there's cake and you don't bring it. Thanks, you guys. There we go. No walker.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Mrs. Frederick.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys. Bye, we'll see you later.
Everybody, and thank you for showing up.
There was cake.
Thanks for showing up.
Oh, man. This is everything. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. That was painful enough. No disrespect to Consumers Power, but that was painful enough.
Mayor, they're still here.
Item 3, Abby, anyone for audience participation?
No, there's not.
Item 4 is planning case for zoning amendments, A, B, and C. We'll start with 4A, off-street parking requirements. Liz Cotto, city planner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor, thank you. I appreciate you sparing them from this.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yes.
So that was very nice of you. I appreciate it. So what you have in front of you are some zoning ordinance amendments that have been before the Planning Commission, and now they are before you. So we have it split into A, B, and C. The first is about the changes to some of the off-street parking requirements. Part B is a change to the allowable uses within the B1 district. And then Part C is some changes to the language in the ordinance that is no longer relevant anymore because of changes to the Zoning Enabling Act. So for 4A, the following zoning amendments are being proposed to better align with the true parking demands experienced by these types of uses. Parking variances have been most often issued to these uses, and subsequent follow-up has revealed sufficient parking is available. As was reviewed at the study session last week, Councilman Karen and also Councilman Rubello worked with staff to come up with some of the changes that you have before you to the zoning ordinance. The information was brought before the Planning Commission, and they recommended approval. The way that we sort of came up with these parking, new parking requirements was a combination of things, looking at ordinances within other cities, looking at the variances that have been granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and seeing if there have been complaints issued in the time since those variances were issued, and looking at some way that we could apply less strict guidelines while still protecting the surrounding neighborhoods and other businesses in the area. So this is what we came up with in terms of changing the off-street parking requirements. We are changing the beauty parlors to go from what was 3 chairs per station to an overall gross square footage calculation. There's a proposal to reduce the amount of parking spaces for fast food and full-service restaurants, as well as reducing the parking requirement for professional offices of doctors and dentists and similar professions. There's also a request for a change to the 9 MAC DDA area, and there would actually be no strict requirements for parking within the 9MAC DDA area. That would be up to the individual businesses to sort of figure that out with each other. And because many of them they're owned by a limited number of people. And then the other part would be to have a cap, so not too much parking in an area. So I am happy to answer any questions on 4A.
Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. So basically, these changes will make it easier for businesses to open and avoid some trips maybe to the ZBA, which has expense for them, as well as the time considerations for staff and the ZBA members, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so these are business-friendly changes. It's make it easier. It's not doing anything to make anything more difficult. And in fact, this will help out businesses. No minimum number of off-street parking spaces by type for use for the downtown St. Clair Shores type district because of the SAD parking lot.
Essentially, yes. There's the SAD parking lot on the east side. However, on the west side of MAC, each of the parking areas are individually owned, but they're sort of collectively striped. So the hope would be that the west side property owners would work together to be able to kind of hash that out.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, just given the shared parking, the different types of businesses that are there. Yeah, I see that when we had a 4.5-hour study session last Monday on a lot of the stuff on today's agenda that we have already talked about this. So if the conversation's a little more clipped, it's because of that. But thank you for taking out the in no event type language from the off-street parking space layout. I think that opens it up in case a business wants to make a petition to the ZBA for more parking, then they may be allowed under the ordinance. I think having that wiggle room for, recognizing that land is unique and people have different circumstances, I think that's great too, because that way they have the option of making their case and establishing a hardship and getting more spaces if necessary.
For sure.
So no, thanks for all the work on this. It's nice to see. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction on these. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Rubello.
Thank you, Mayor. A long time coming. This is very positive for the business community, especially for those that are trying to open up places. That's probably, most of my questions to you are the phone calls of, hey, what's going on at that location, and to Denise. So obviously, long time coming, like I said, and I got all my questions basically asked at that. How long was it?
4.5 hours.
4.5 hours. So I think I had a birthday somewhere in the middle of that. So
It was on my birthday, by the way, if anyone's interested.
Oh, happy birthday to everybody.
So I did have a birthday during the meeting.
Okay. So I want to give a special thanks to Steve Scavone and Lee Pertolo.
Yes.
Who participated in helping us do a very positive thing for the business community. Might not solve every issue, but it solves a lot of issues. So I would make a motion, like I said, like Candace said, 4.5 hours of going around and around. So I will make a motion to approve the request for the following off-street parking zoning ordinance amendments. And they're all listed on here.
And seconded by Mr. Karen. A question by Mr. Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, just additional comment. Thanks, Liz and Denise, for all the work we put in trying to come up with basically what is basically a best fit solution to the issues we've been having. And also to update council, last week I did drop in on the DDA because this is one of the agenda items, to let them know. So we did walk through the DDA members, the specific changes for their area where we're basically removing the number of spots required by business, explain to them the logic of that inner ring is landlocked. We're not going to add any additional parking there because there's no land. No one's going to tear down a building in downtown to add parking, and that basically was going to be up to them. And actually, it was good to hear one of the business owners that's on the DDA actually bring up of when they get potential new tenants, they're looking at their use and do they have enough parking for that use? And they actually described that they turned somebody down that, no, it's not going to work because there's not enough parking for that type of business here in that slot. So it's good to see that forethought of the property owners within the downtown, thinking ahead to those type of situations. So, so they get it. So they were on board with that change, and it was basically going to be up to them. And like Councilman Rebello said, that this will help in terms of streamlining the approval process, that we're basically taking away one more step in terms of what was going on in downtown, to where businesses had to go get 4 spots get a letter of 4 spots from here, 3 spots from there to try to meet some requirement, to where it's an open parking lot. Everyone's going to park where they're going to park.
Right.
And that, so that makes a lot of sense to just leave it up to them, and they're willing to take on the challenge. So that's good to hear. So thank you, Denise. Thank you, Liz, for all the work that went into these changes, and it will help a lot of businesses going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Frederick.
Thanks, Mayor. So, first of all, thanks. I know we've talked about this for years and years and years, and it's finally here, and we're making some changes and hopefully fixing it and keeping an eye on it, right, to see if, because who knows what the ripple effect is. We don't know what we don't know. But we do know one thing, and Liz, you and I talked about this, that there's one business that after all of this, it doesn't fit, right? So I guess going forward, if they've already been approved, got their zoning approval, that it's okay. Now, what if they sell it? Does that zoning run with the business?
Yes.
Okay.
So it runs with the land. So they would be able to continue to have a restaurant at that location and be considered, I think they're considered a legal, I don't know if they're a legal non-conforming once a variance has been issued. No, they're just a variance. They
Just a
issued a
variance.
variance. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so that's kind of important. It's always, we're trying to make sure we're not causing any problems. So,
Right.
okay, that's perfect. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
A motion by Mr. Rebel, supported by Mr. Karen, to approve the request for the following off-street zoning ordinance amendments. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you. On 4A.
All right, so 4B is the change to the B1 district. When a change is made to the B1 district, this is a hierarchical zoning ordinance, so something that becomes expressly allowed in the lowest or least intensive commercial zoning district then becomes expressly allowed in the higher intensity ones. So in this case, we are adding the language of body art facilities to the B1 district, which actually brings it in line with an amendments to another part of our ordinances from 4 or 5 years ago, I would say, where we made it easier for body art facilities to locate within the city, but we didn't put it in the actual zoning ordinance. So this is just allowing it within the B1 district, which would then carry up to higher intensity uses as well.
Ms. Rusi?
Thank you. Question on the memo we received for 4B. I had asked this over email, the straggling reference to the prior recodification ordinance numbers of 15.260.
Yes.
Is that something we have to be stuck with, or is that something that was, I forgot what the end result
Was.
of
So
for Unicode?
we requested a legal opinion from the city attorney's office, and we received word back that the language that he cited from the state's regulations basically said you should keep that historical reference in there.
Okay, so we're stuck with this with all the zoning ordinances, just because that's what it used to be?
Right. Now, what Abby and I were looking at is the possibility of being able to take the references that are within the actual language itself and putting it at the end of each of the paragraphs, so we don't have all of the numbers.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
So we're gonna see if that's something that we can do, and then is that enough of a reference that would still satisfy state law?
I think that would be helpful, and I think it would show also the history of it, just like we do when, we have the statutory history of an ordinance at the end,
Right.
amended. Just because right now it's very confusing to have the old 15.2, et cetera, numbers mixed in with the new section 48 dash whatever numbers.
Then there's even another set, which is the 35 points, something, which was before the 15 chapter was even introduced. So that makes it even worse sometimes.
Yeah, so, if we could keep pursuing that one,
Sure.
that would be appreciated, just because it definitely clears things up, I think, impacts the more easy usability of it.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Karen?
Thank you. Yeah, this is just another case of, because when we wrote the body art ordinance of what the criteria would be to operate a facility in the city, not adding it to the zoning meant, even though we created an ordinance, anytime someone wanted to have that facility, they had to go to zoning and get a special use variance and that. So that's what this is clearing up. So with that, I'd make a motion to approve the request to update the B1 local business district principal use permitted ordinance to include the body art facilities.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Rubello. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
All right, and then Part C is a pretty simple one. So as all of you are aware, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, which was amended in 2008, took away the rights or the abilities for any other elected or appointed body to grant variances except the Zoning Board of Appeals. So back in the day, City Council was allowed to issue variances for height, and they were allowed to issue variances for accessory structures. And so when the Zoning Enabling Act was changed, the ability for the City Council to issue those variances was removed, and it now goes before the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is just the leftover language that has just been sitting around. And I think there's even a couple more places where I'm going to find it and bring it back as well as we do more of these amendments. But these were just the couple of ones that I found when we were quickly going through.
Ms. Rusi?
Yep, that was actually my question was, are
There's
these
more.
it, or they're, okay, so
I
it's an
think
ongoing
there's more.
process.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Move to approve.
Support.
Moved by Ms. Rusi, supported by Mr. Karen. The question by Mr. Rubello.
Yeah, just basically, I'm gonna make a comment, a positive one. 4A, B, and C, somebody already called me and is gonna utilize this, so, they're gonna move their business. They're looking at that, from on Jefferson to another property on Jefferson, so Liz and Denise, it's already working, so
Great.
it's in the process.
Yeah,
Great
and,
job.
This is the first, we wanted to see how this went. We're going to bring another group back to you guys in probably 8-10 weeks or so, and we'll just keep rolling with it until we've got a whole slew of good changes.
Good. Moved by Ms. Rusi, supported by Mr. Karen, to approve the following changes to the zoning, which is, of course, we already talked about. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Liz, thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank Councilman Karen because he did the lion's share of the
Absolutely.
research for this.
For sure.
And it made it a lot easier on staff to be able to bring this forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5 is request to adopt the resolution approving permanent changes to the voting locations. Abby and Amy,
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
evening.
Amy and I are here tonight to request the adoption of the resolution approving permanent changes to the voting locations. This change comes before you due to the Michigan election law amendment that went in effect February 13th of 2024. So this allowed the rise of the maximum number of active registered voters. So it went from 2,999 to 4,999. So this allowed us to kind of condense our precincts from 21 to 12. This is a huge cost savings for the city, and all of our voters will be noticed with new ID cards. The 3 precincts that will be closed, the locations, will be posted on the windows during the election. And I'll open it up to any questions. Keep it brief.
So this is a sizable savings at least, right? Although,
Yes.
right. Mr. Rubello?
Huge cost savings.
Yes, this will be a very large cost savings for the city.
It just seems with more and more people voting absentee, I mean, this was sort of, makes a lot of sense now.
Yes.
So on an average election before, how much would they cost in the neighborhood of?
For local, depending on if it's a local, state, or federal election, the cost does differ based on the turnout. So on average, I based it that it's a $36,000 a year cost savings, and then next year, we're looking at getting new election equipment, and that will save the city $122,000. This doesn't include poll worker savings, because I did not want to include that, just because we are condensing the precincts for the first couple elections. I probably will overstaff them until we kind of can look at how many people we need.
So obviously, this makes a lot of sense with the new technology that we have. How are the residents going to be notified that there's a change of location where they vote? So what process are you guys going to do to let them know?
So we'll work with the engineering company to get some new maps created that we can work with the communications department to post to the website and social media. All of the voters, so even though this only affects 26% of our voters that will actually notice a move in their polling location, everyone will get a new ID card. And we will also be posting on the locations that are closed. I'm trying to think, is there anything else we?
Because 13,000, more than 13,000 voters are going to have
Wow.
a change.
13,000 will, but based on the way people have chosen to vote, the style, it really breaks it down to 3,656 that will notice a change in their election day, that voting, that people who go to the polls. Because often other people use our absentee voting we have, or early voting.
Are you going to have people at the locations that we're pulling out? So somebody who might not have understood or got the memo that their voting location changed, so if they go to this place and say, hey, there's nobody here, is there going to be somebody camped out there?
There will be signage on the doors with contact information for my office, and then we will not have DPW put out any signs. So there will not be any more vote today flags or precinct signs there.
And obviously, we go through all the communication motions of putting this on our websites and Facebook pages and all that type of stuff. So, okay, thank you.
Mr. Vitale.
Yeah, I figured I would just call out the locations that are closing since they're in front of us here. So that would be the South Lake Administration Building, St. Joan of Arc, and Lakeside Community Church. So if those are your voting locations, you'll have a change in store that you'll be notified of.
That's correct.
Ms. Burgess.
I think that when I heard about this and read about it, I was actually very, very pleased. Just the last few years, I've noticed that every time I go to vote, it's in and out within 3 minutes. I mean, it's just been already pretty streamlined, and now we're going to cut out some areas, and we would think that maybe this is going to cause, you know, more people at the polls having to stand in line, but I don't think so, because of the way you broke down all the numbers. We're having more and more people doing absentee, and now that we have early voting too, I think that this is going to be streamlined. We're going to be saving so much money. That is just such a bonus to this, and plus having to buy all the new machines next year. And you're doing this when it's off-season, I guess, from state and federal. We're doing it for our city elections, so it gets people time enough to be able to get used to this. And new cards in the mail, hopefully that will solve a lot of problems. So I think it's a great thing we're doing here.
Thank you.
Mr. Frederick?
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to commend you guys on the fact that you had to include Lake Shore, Lakeview, and South Lake and their boundaries into.
I want to thank Amy. We were sitting there with the highlighter going line by line.
I can tell. I mean, you did a great job there, and you saved us. You're saving us money. I mean, how much better does that get, right? So, way to go! Just a huge thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Ms. Rusi?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the work that went into this. I appreciate all the information I have in the packet and all the information that went to the Election Commission because they went through this information first, correct?
Yes.
Okay, it's been, a lot of the things I have written down for questions have already been addressed. The impact on election workers, you addressed that. I think that's a smart way to do it. This will take effect this year for this election, correct?
Yes.
Notification has been addressed. I cannot emphasize enough, though, we really want to make sure that this information is hammered home. People who will be impacted, some of these people have been voting at those locations for a long time. So this will be a change, and they need to be, make sure they're aware of that. And we were just looking at the city calendar today, the paper one that went out, Dustin and I, in December. And it has the voting precinct map. And of course, it reflects what, currently is prior to this vote. So we really need to make sure the information gets out there because right now that page is, obsolete. So if we're going to be putting this map out, I'm not sure if this was just for us and the election commissioner. This is going to be something that's going to be.
That's a rough draft.
Rough draft, yeah. I had found in precinct 4, which is my precinct, so I was especially paying attention to it. It's like, oh, well, I'll be voting at the same place, and I will, but it says Assumption Creek Community Church, not Assumption Greek, C-R-E-E-K, it said Greek. And it definitely is Greek, so we want to make sure we get
We'll
that
go through it with the
corrected.
fine-tooth
Could
comb.
she switch it to Italian?
Okay. It is by a river, but, okay. No, I appreciate all the work that went into this, all the information for you guys and the election commission too. So thanks for the efforts here.
Thank you.
Mr. Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely a ton of work to try to consolidate these down. It'd be interesting to be down to just 12 precincts here going forward. The one question they still have left remaining is on the very last page. It has the breakdown of the Congress, Senate, House Rep, County Commissioner districts, and it looks like 5 and 6 have both county commissioner districts within the precinct.
9 and 13.
No, 5 and 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. County Commissioner, District 9. And
Yeah, we
13.
Yeah.
could not avoid a split. I'm sorry, we couldn't avoid a split. So we do have, we went from having 2 precincts that were split to 3.
Okay, so for the people that are voting in that precinct, since they're going to have there's going to be 2 ballots in that precinct,
There'll be 2
right?
ballot styles, correct. So when they check in, the person who's checking into the electronic poll book, it will tell them which ballot style they need to give that voter.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I know that's pretty much how we were running early voting, right? In terms of, we had folders of ballots in the back, and you grab the particular one, so that's
Yes.
basically one worker's going to be assigned to make sure they're grabbing the right ballot for that person.
Correct,
To make sure
yes.
that's there,
Yep.
okay. Just as right, I can probably look up the lines myself, but it's like just how much of the different areas are in both? Are they like?
I know the numbers before off the top of my head. It was a very small split. So 5, the new 5 and 6.
Like, it's not going to be like half or half, right? It's like 1 or 2 streets or something like that,
Probably
maybe?
like a quarter.
A quarter? Okay,
I can get you that exact number.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
We'll need a motion, please.
Move to approve. Support.
Moved by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Kieran, to adopt a resolution approving the permanent changes to the voting locations. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, 7-0. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention one last thing about early voting. So there will be no early voting for the local election coming up. So I just wanted to disclose that before, campaigning and everything begins.
Thank you. Item 6, the library project update. Mr. Lent.
First, I wanted to say Stephanie does want to apologize to everybody that she could not make it. She had a family appointment that was very, very important and could not get out of it. But here today, we do have Ply Plus. We do have our 2 individual council members, Councilwoman Rusi and Councilman Frederick. We have been diligently sitting on this library project for quite some time, as individuals know. We received a federal funding on May of 2022 for $1.5 million. However, by the time that really got appropriated to us, was actually early this year. Early in the middle of last year, July of '23. We have been meeting with this project with Ply Plus, and then I'll go ahead and let Ply go first, and then we can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Craig Borum. I'm an architect and principal at Ply Plus, and we've been working for about a year since we really got started working on the library design. Working with Councilwoman Russi, Councilman Frederick, City Manager Dustin Lent, Chris Reyes, who's been the project manager, as well as Stephanie Fair, the head librarian, and her staff, really to build on the preliminary designs that we inherited as part of the project that you have seen before. We've been working to bring that kind of visionary design into a state of implementation, fine-tuning it based on input from you and from staff. I've been working hard to develop that. So the bulk of the project, you can see the plan here, is primarily in what is now the kind of adult area, as well as the Friends of the Space, Friends of the Library space that's in the front, the old cafe, converting that main area into primarily the youth area that includes both kind of toddler, youth, and teen spaces, as well as a maker space and a storytime space, which is where the old cafe was, or the Friends of the Library are now. Also, as part of the project, you can see in the what is currently a storage room, and next to it, the kind of current kind of conference room, converting that into the genealogy collection, which is currently in the basement. Bringing that up and upgrading that space for that collection. And then as well, redesigning and renovating and updating the main reception desk and the circulation desk. As part of those changes, it actually ripples through the entire library, because we're displacing where the current kind of adult fiction and nonfiction sections are with the youth area, and swapping them with where the youth area is now. And part of that reasoning is to bring the children right to the front, so they're not having to walk through the entire library to get to the back. And then also making a kind of separation space for sound and other things throughout the program. Is the next slide? Yeah. So a couple of images, just starting here with the maker space and storytime space, which is in that area in the front of the building, directly adjacent to the parking lot. And you can see there's a kind of nautical theme that was developed in the previous kind of visioning exercises. We've tried to build on that with how we're handling acoustic materials, the color palette that we're using, as well as some of the features throughout the library. And in this space, it's a really flexible space. We do all kinds of project work. The library's recently acquired 3D printing equipment. That'll be in there, other kinds of making and project space. And we're opening it up to be transparent to the rest of the library, so that there's visibility about what's going on in there, and you can see the kind of activities and the kind of events or kind of games and other things that are happening within that space. The next slide. The main youth area, you're seeing two views here that are really, the top one is right as you enter the library. And again, building on the kind of nautical theme and using a kind of a set of custom shelving units that, and the first one act as a kind of sailboat connecting it to the lake and Lake St. Clair, as well as a number of other furniture pieces that are custom that kind of build on that theme. And the next slide. And the teen space is actually an enclosed room that actually acts as a threshold between the sort of adult collection and the kind of youth collection, and it's enclosed, so there's a kind of sense of place that belongs just to the teens. They can come and have that space, making it both flexible and active as a kind of space, using books to kind of provide a low barrier to help build that enclosure and kind of sense of interior, but also maintaining glass above that so that there's visibility from librarians and others who can see what's going on in there. And then the next slide is just an update of where we are with the project, and just to walk through that. So The project currently is funded through the HUD grant of the 1.5 million, as City Manager Lent mentioned. There's a donation from the Joyce Robinson Trust for the genealogy room of $181,000, and the Teresa Ziske donation for $10,000 for the circulation desk. So it brings a total current funding to 1.69 million. And then looking back at the 2022 project, their estimates were already at 1.85. We're 3 years later with escalation costs and other things, and kind of trying to work through both the control of the construction costs and projects. We're currently at actually a construction cost of 1.7 million, but adding the soft costs on, which include furniture, fittings, and equipment, architecture, engineering fees, moving costs, IT costs, as well as a 20% owner's contingency in case anything comes up during construction changes or kind of unforeseen conditions that might exist within any existing building, which we work on. We always recommend. And that brings us to about 1.5 million. We've also set aside a number of items which we think would be very beneficial to implement in the project as alternates, including upgrading lighting throughout the public spaces of the library. Currently, the budget is including just in the renovated space of the youth area. We have an additional line item for more acoustic kind of treatments to the ceiling in the youth area, again, to help with sound and the kind of noise, as we're trying to, that space is becoming a much more interactive kind of library space, not just books and reading, but all kinds of ways of engaging with the children. And then replacing an operable room divider that's in the current multi-purpose room, which is in a kind of little bit of a rough shape, which was a recent add that has come on board. And that brings us to a total construction cost at the moment of 2.68 million when you add all of those things together. We have a timeline right now of we're targeting construction to begin in September. We could begin before that, but we're targeting to allow the library to continue to function in a full programming mode all through the summer, and then over the winter months transition into the construction, but we should be completed by early spring of 2026. And, happy to answer any questions.
Yep. So I was just going to add a few things. Also included in your packet is a little bit more detail, just of some of the DD, design development cost estimates and updates. One of the drivers of some of the increase in cost was when we were going through the construction, we knew that we were going to be relocating a lot of the adult bookcases. And when you start moving the bookcases, you start moving the adult or the youth bookcases into the new zone, there's going to be the footprint of where those bookshelves sat for multiple years. And the question was as well, not only when you move those up, what kind of condition is the carpet? It's going to be completely different shade, completely different stuff. You're going to be able to see that shelf had been sitting there. And then there's also a concern, is there even carpet underneath those shelves? And then while you're moving it as well, what kind of tear and or scrapes are you going to do to the carpet, and then trying to protect that? The other decision or discussion that took place in a lot of these meetings was the start of the construction. And as we had mentioned, being able to start the construction a little bit earlier, one of the busiest times for the library is when school is out and all the summer programs that we do in our library. So being able to start once the kids go back into school after Labor Day, being able to shut down the library. Now, as part of shutting down the library, we do feel that we're going to be able to operate very similar to when we did with COVID. We almost had like a trial run of the library being shut down, but still being able to have individuals check out books, have the books be delivered outside, have pickup stations that they'll be able to do. That way, that service of actually being able to check out books and get books, as well as just over time with technology, the advantages that we have with Hoopla and all of our online databases, and still being able to check out books that way. So those are some of the rationale. Also dealing with the funding, there is, the library does have an endowment fund. We have been reaching out to the library board. There is some willingness to be able to donate some money towards this project. So there will be, the library board has already determined that they will donate some money. What that exact dollar figure is still to be determined. Stephanie is working with them, and hopefully we'll have that answer in the very near future. And then we've also, the two members on the boards have worked with trying to come up with some other fundraising activities, something very similar to what we did at the golf course with the BRIC program. Stephanie has been working with Matt Crippen on being able to create something that's very similar. But as part of that program was also looking at the front of the building. This does not touch the front of the building at all, but we were hoping with that BRIC program to be able to get rid of maybe some of those, Caesar-esque tiles that kind of sit there, and then the bricks that are on the way walking in, replacing those, putting the new bricks in, having those be donated, and then being able to pay for that project, and then anything that could be left over would then go towards help funding this project. So those are just kind of some brief information, and now go with the members on the committee.
Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. Well, Dustin already addressed some of the ideas we have to close the financial gap. Fundraising, I know Councilman Frederick has approached some community organizations as well, and they're shown some interest in contributing or helping with the fundraising. The Library Endowment Fund, also the Friends of the Library, would like to assist us in sponsoring something, maybe in the teen room or something along those lines. So there is a gap. A lot of that, not a lot, but a portion of that is the full library carpeting that we were not anticipating having to do, but I think it kind of made sense to tackle that while we're doing this for the reasons Dustin described, and also while the library is empty, it would be a lot easier to put that carpeting in versus doing it in a couple of years when, we have to move everything around again. I think one of the things that really sets this project apart, maybe from some of the other projects we've talked about recently, is all of the area we're talking about addressing, apart from maybe like the little library and youth office space, is all public facing space. This is all space that will be used and enjoyed by residents. Right now they're using it, and the current space, Monday to Saturday, most of the year, morning to evening. So I think what really makes this a special project is that we are addressing not just, city buildings, but these are city buildings that will get a lot of use out of, from the residents of the community. So we're trying to make it more technologically advanced to, you could see from like the makerspace, we have the electricity hookups coming from the ceiling. So we can have some flexibility there in terms of what they're able to plug in and work with the machines. I don't think we had, I don't think we brought pictures from the genealogy rooms, did we?
I did not.
Okay, we also have that, and that's mostly funded by the donations. Then if you look at the youth area, I know that our committee had presented a previous version from the previous architect. We've kept a lot of the same elements, but we've also, I think, made it a little bit more classic and a little less kitschy, I think, from some of the initial designs. We still have some custom mill work, but we cut back on some of it, which also reduces the cost. And we've worked with the librarians on making sure we establish clear lines of sight so the parents can keep an eye, the librarians can keep an eye on the kids as they run around and utilize the space and have fun. We had some, in the previous iteration, we had some more climbing fun elements. We took those out, most of them. We did keep some of the sculptural, like the sailboat, which kind of mimics the logo of the city as well as the library, but it also has some storage space, so it's not a climbing element, but it is still kind of give it some of the theming that we were looking for to make it unique to St. Clair Shores and its proximity location to the marina, the lake, and everything. So we worked hard in this, and like I said, we are still trying to work on the funding option, but we wanted to give you and the public at home who will be using this an update on where we are with the plans and the designs. And it is a change from what we had. I think it's a change in the better direction too. And the teen space is, I think, going to be a great thing right now. The library youth area looks the same as when I was a little girl checking out, Berenstein Bear books and Babysitter Club books and all those things over there. Right now, there's not a designated teen space. You will be as a teen checking out your books, and the little kid books are really right nearby, and you have, paper artwork taped around and everything. The furniture's smaller, so this will give the teens and the older kids really a space to call their own, still visible to everyone, still everything, but they'll feel it's more appropriate for them to go and visit with friends, do their homework, bring their laptop, things like that. It's a trend in a lot of the library updates I've seen. When we first started this, I visited a bunch of different libraries that were updated in the area, and I think this will also really help the library be accessible and welcoming to that group in between the little kids and the adult section, that group that right now we really don't address as much as we could be in terms of offering a space and offering programming, having it be welcoming to that target area where you want kids to still feel the magic they have visiting libraries as a little kid and carry that throughout their adulthood too. So that's where we're at with the project, and we've been putting a lot of effort into trying to work within our budget and making the space new and usable and still have some of that wow factor while, again, cutting down on some of the custom mill work that was driving up the cost. So.
Mr. Frederick?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, Candace covered quite a bit of it. One of the key things we wanted to do was to stop, I guess, adults walking through the kids area, to go to the room where all of the programming was happening. So this kind of eliminates that. Bringing stuff up out of the basement, the genealogy room, which we're struggling with what's going on over there with, we talked about it, I think, with mold and some other things, and we just don't want to lose any of our, valuable history, not only of people, but of other things that are down there. So the genealogy thing is extremely important to get that upstairs. If you look at where we're at on the cost, this has taken a long time, but we've been very diligent in trying to keep the costs down. Like Candace mentioned, we took a lot of the, custom stuff out so that we're not, paying extra to have, a bigger sailboat or another thing for somebody to sit on. So we've done quite a bit of that. And just doing some percentages here, the HUD grant represents about 56% of the current estimate for construction. So again, that's like somebody giving us 56 cents on the dollar to put this together. And then if you look at the other money, and there's some money that, some other donations that we've gotten that are not in here, which I looked at, it got us up to about $17.35. So that's about 64% of the way there. And I guess, for me, if we wait any longer, this same type of construction is going to be even more expensive. And, if not now, then when? And I know we've said that before, but this is something as we're looking at police and fire and possibly some bonding or some other way to get the gap narrowed. I would love to, for this group to consider adding part of what we're doing at the library to whatever we're going to be doing in the bonding area. So I think it's extremely important. We have a lot of residents that use the library. I think I've told you that probably 1,000 times since I've been sitting up here. But it really is a valuable resource. And it becomes more valuable as, you can't just think of it as books. It's the whole digital side. Like Candace mentioned, we're making it more digital friendly. There are more digital options, whether it's, Hulu or some of the other things that are available. And I think it's extremely important for our residents. So that's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
Just a comment, I guess, was, and I appreciate the overview and informing the body here. With the alternatives here, we're $985,000 short. So I guess I'm a little concerned about that. I heard some of that, we're going to raise it, but we're going to be, I would think, still significantly short.
Yeah.
And when we've been at this process, at least with the police and fire, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, when we were at this point here, then we went out and got numbers, and when it came back, it went higher again, right? That happened, and so I wouldn't be surprised, quite frankly, if that happens again. It happened before just recently, and this is not 5 years ago, it's it's 8 months ago, so this goes higher. Where are we going with the money? I know Mr. Frederick just talked about some bond. If it's not bond, it's going to have to be our cash. I mean, and when do we talk about raising some of this money, and I know there's a couple more questions I'll get right to, so maybe get to them, but I like the project. It looks great. I'm been long for getting the genealogy room upstairs. I think we'll get a lot more use when it gets upstairs. I love the library. I just need to know, I think, quickly here to understand where we are, or how, I know where we are. How are we going to fund this? Because this seems to be either you add something more to this bond or you pay the cash for this thing. Unless I'm missing something, yes, I think there's going to be a little bit money we're going to raise. I think I heard endowment and maybe the Friends and maybe a service group, but that doesn't fill a $985,000 gap. And I'm using $985 because it looks like the divider and lighting and acoustics. And I do sometimes subscribe to the fact, well, we're here, we're doing this, and we might not get back again. And I think probably if these are needs and you can justify that, we're here now. It seems like maybe that's what we should do. It only costs more, although I understand that's still $170,000 more. But you question, then I'll go to Ms. Burgess. You want to answer or something?
Yeah, I was just going to answer a little bit of this. So I think some of the things that we kind of took out were the things that would be easier if you had to come back and do it. As Councilwoman Rusi and Councilman Frederick mentioned with the carpet, everything's going to be moved out. Everything's going to be moved in.
Understand.
It's going to be very hard to go back and actually do the carpet. With the LED lighting, this does include the lighting and the genealogy room and the youth service area. To go back and actually put lighting in is something that can be done when the project was over. So that's kind of why we put it in as an alternate.
Okay, can you stop there? So do I have a light library and then a dark library?
So the lighting the hues will be different. You are correct. The hues would be different.
So I'm going to be in a darker library.
I wouldn't necessarily say it would be dark. It would be light, but it would be different hues.
All right.
Going into the funding, this is a question that I guess really we are kind of, as an administration, we would be looking towards the committee and for the council to kind of give what their recommendations would be. Where I will say, you make a very good point. Where we are in this project is we're at the design development phase. We will be moving soon to the construction document phase, where they will be putting forth the construction documents. Once that is completed, the anticipated is to go ahead and put the bid out in July, with the bid coming back in August and award being in August, with the construction to start in September. As we are all aware here, the police and fire buildings did go up. Those are very large projects as well, which also had underground, new buildings, new everything. I'm not going to say that the construction documents and the bids potentially might not come up, but it's a little bit easier of a bids to be able to come in a little bit closer than what you would expect during the police and fire. However, even stating that, even if it comes in right on par and we're 100% accurate, we are still looking at a $985 with the alternates. Without the alternates, still about $825,000 difference, with some additional funding of whether it's service groups, whether it's the endowment, whether it's the Friends. I think a fair assessment would say, even with that coming in, we're looking at $500,000 to $600,000, probably being short. Which then the question I would say is that something that we want to look at with the police and fire to add that onto that bond for capital improvements, or would it be something that we utilize with our general fund? So that would be a question that would be asked to council.
Ms. Burgess.
I want to start off and say that this is a beautiful project you guys have come up with. And it looks great. I looked over all the stuff today, and I just think that, the way our society is moving towards everything being digital, and kids are on their phones all the time. What a beautiful place for these kids, young kids and teens to have, and what a beautiful decorative area, useful area. Hopefully it'll draw more kids in and get back to the basics of life, I guess, instead of being on their phones all the time. I love it. I think it's great. My concern is the same as what the mayor mentioned, is the big gap between that we're over budget. I know it took a long time. Same with our police and fire coming back. It took a long time. And Councilwoman Candace had mentioned about finding other options for funding and stuff. And I think that's great. I know there's a lot of people out there that really love our library and would probably be donating money. But how long are we going to give for that fundraising to take a chance to come in before we really need to set this to, if we really want to do a construction that's, you know, in the late fall? So that would be my question. Like, I think adding this on, like you had said, maybe bonding it out and putting it part of the police and fire in the bond would be a great idea. Because if we wait too long, if we don't get the funding in, if we wait another year to do this, the costs are just going to exponentially go up every time. So I do think there's a lot over budget here, so I think that our only option was to do like you had suggested, Mayor.
Mr. Rebello.
Yeah, this sounds like deja vu all over again, as they say. You know, we had the same circumstances with our police. We had building, our fire department building, new builds and stuff. And I think I've heard creeping costs, and that's just sort of, you know, the scope of creeping costs, and it just, it gets expensive. So I guess I agree. I agree with, you made great points, Councilwoman. And where do we go from here? Because it's not really, we're not really voting on anything today. So it's just,
I think it's
where do we
direction.
go, Mayor? What's our next
I think
step?
it's directional that we've got to talk about. I understand. And this is, I think, the first time it's come to us in this format, and we now see it and understand it better, right? And I think we all like what we see, right?
Yeah,
but
great
but
job.
now we understand some of the costs too that we had not seen prior. So here we are. So
No,
I
yeah,
think it's
you
direction.
just don't see this stuff coming all the time. And the difference was 900. Do you have that graph to put back up
It's
there again?
It's 825 if you don't go to the alternatives. With the alternatives, it's 985.
985. That seems like a heck of a lot of money to raise on fundraisers. Not exactly sure it's possible, unless somebody like Mrs. Joyce Robinson, you know, who dropped a heavy dime on us.
For sure.
So, thanks to her family. So, you want direction? Is that
Well, I
what you're
think
looking for?
we just keep talking, but I think that's what
I think if I was to pick, I would definitely, we're going to have to come up with that. I'm not going to dig into rainy day funds and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit, but it seems that big of a number is like bond stuff to me. That's a heck of a lot of money to make up, and it's nobody's fault, but it's just the sign of the times, I guess. And there's costs that go up.
But we'll have a beautiful library.
People like our library, that's for sure. So, you know, you have to make a decision. Do you cut back on what's going on in the library or the build, or? But I'm in favor of, we're fixing a lot of stuff up that we have in the past, you know, year or two, and some of this old stuff here in the city needs to be fixed for the next generations that come through. And I'm all for that. I think the library is a great asset to any community. So that's, I guess, my direction, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. Dustin, do you remember how much the endowment fund had?
I was actually just trying to think of that. I believe it's right around 300. I know Stephanie is planning on, that's one thing I was going to bring up as well. Stephanie at their next meeting is planning on bringing up and getting a commitment from them on how much that they are willing to put towards this project.
Do you know when that meeting is?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
It's coming up.
Yeah, they say you would.
Like before the next council meeting?
No, it's after the next council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
All
the second week in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Thursday.
Yes, ma'am.
do we anticipate having carryover from the library budget this year?
We have been funding the library budget with a little bit of general fund budget each year, so normally the answer would be no.
Okay. I would definitely I think, given the budgetary constraints, be in favor of taking the lighting out of the alternate, not doing the lighting. That's, we also had talked about too, I guess the mayor's point by having different lighting, pursuing like a DTE grant for that too. So there is, you know, possibilities out there too for the future that I think Stephanie was talking about pursuing concurrently as well. And I know we were trying to also finalize some of the budgetary numbers in relation to the furniture and everything too. And once we get some, I guess, more finalized numbers, then we can start. I mean, once we get this council to sign off on the direction we're going in with the designs, we can approach the service organizations. We can do the fundraising. We've been talking about the brick paver program, and that should be almost good to go, I think. I know the library's coming to see one of the Kiwanis groups next month and ask them to assist as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of it ongoing, and once we get this council sign off, at least on the plans and the direction, I think we can really start hitting the ground running with fundraising, you know. So I think that's, after this meeting, I'm sure Ron will be on the phone tomorrow morning, and I'll be sending out some emails too, trying to get people on board as well. So I think it's possible to raise a good chunk of this without having to resort to alternate funding possibilities. Beyond that, at least that's what the hope is.
Mr. Vitale.
Is our current library lighting LED?
They have switched over to the LED lightings without the upgrade to the ballast. It's the old system. So the answer, if you ask an LED person, the answer is no.
I'm not asking an LED person, I'm asking in terms of
when we
what we spend
when
in
we
terms
answer
of,
engineer
we did a
architects, I guess I
JCI
would ask.
project. We did a JCI project years ago to do LED conversion throughout the city. There should be a light temperature. It's 2700 K, it's 4200 K. Why wouldn't we just match our new lighting to the old lighting?
So I would leave that. Do you remember when your crew came through and looked at the LED lighting?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I think
So I'm going to be with Candace on this.
Throughout, I think there's not a
I don't think we should pursue the lighting as part of this. There's not good justification. No one has the information. We're already LED. So I think that's a good place to start cutting.
How much is the lighting then, while we're talking about it?
It's about 100.
111.
111, okay.
That's a big chunk. That's an eighth.
That's what?
111,000.
Just so that's on the alternates, so that's
Correct.
technically.
I
Yeah, it would be
understand.
back to the two, and I think that's why the board, we felt the exact same way. So we tried to, I sit on all the committees for the police, the fire, and also the library. I will commend both every council member who sit on all the committees. There's really not a lot of fluff and/or stuff in here. I mean, it has been cut from day one. Both members that are serving on the library committee can mention, I mean, every time we got a budget update, it was like, hey, where can we cut for this, cut for that? How can we make this cheaper? As they mentioned, we took a lot of the mill work out, a lot of the extra additional custom work out. We have tried to, we also want to make sure still that when they walk into the building, they can tell there's been a renovation. And that the kids walk in for all the kids program and the youth program, they go to the makerspace and they have that. It is technologically advanced. There is new IT wiring being run. There is that wow factor that is there. But even saying that, there has been, I can't describe how much scrutiny and cuts that we constantly have made to try to get to that point. But that's just not on the library board. That is for the members I know who sit on the fire board, who did the exact same thing, and for the members that were on the police that did the exact same thing. And as we kind of have mentioned too, with the construction cost is still right around the 1.7 million. It's once you start adding in the soft cost, and that's kind of what caught up with a lot of these programs when you start adding in the engineering fees, the furniture fees, the IT fees, and then also, like I said, the contingency.
Yeah, 288's the contingency.
Yeah,
That's a good chunk of it.
And that contingency is set up knowing that there probably is going to be some increases once you get to construction documents and once that gets out to bid.
That's 20%, right?
And that is 20%. So that is already fed into that program for that safety net once we get there. And yes, right now we are 825,000 without no alternates. And there are some additional funding that we'll have some more answers for council. But it is, like I said, realistically about, even with the fundraising, I think we're probably looking at about $500,000 on the short end.
Mr. Karen.
Thank you. I think thought that came to mind. Well, first off, I think great project in terms of the improvements are going to be made, the flow, having a whole dedicated children's area, teen area in the front of the library, and kind of moving the adults toward the back. Great improvement with the layout, be much more functional, especially being a historical commission, moving the genealogy building up front. I know that every meeting we're talking about Heidi going to go find something, because even though they're not all in the basement anymore, they're off on some side storage. We got to send Heidi, one of the staff members there, to go find any book that someone wants to do historical research on. So, so I think major improvement to the library. Definitely cost is an issue. I think one suggestion, it came to mind as Councilwoman Rusi was talking in terms of the budget, is if this is going to be happening within a fiscal year, and we're basically, we got 6 to 7 months, or it's going to be closed, right? You know, I think staff is going to be in there, but circulation, for have Stephanie go through the budget and just start to like line item stuff of, hey, if we're closed for 6, 7 months, these things don't no longer apply, and just kind of see what that does add up as well. You know, it may not get us to the 500,000, but there may be a couple 100,000 in there. Just by doing that, and even considering of, you know, if we're going to be, you know, limited in terms of access for 6, 7 months, maybe some of the collection, you know, buying some parts of the collection gets pushed off until we're reopened. And, you know, start looking at some things like that within the current library budget, since it will be confined to hopefully one fiscal year, not go beyond it, in terms of that the construction can be done in that time frame. It'd be something to look at.
That's a good idea. Mr. Frederick?
I just wanted to add a little bit on the library board, not the construction team, but on the library board itself. We've got one person who's very knowledgeable about grants and has a sort of a database, and she has taken it upon herself to start that process too. So it's very encouraging. She used to do this for the Lake House. I sat on that board. I watched her work, and she's awesome. So we're hoping that that's going to help us on the backside. I think, you know, from the perspective of Mr. Rebello and the mayor, that, you know, we almost have to do this in some way and designate some money to do it. And then if this other stuff comes in, maybe there's a payback of some sort, so that we can get to the number and then put it back. John, I know what you're saying, and I'm pretty sure Stephanie is working on that. But that's a great point, and I think we'll ask her that when she gets back tomorrow.
Yep.
But I know that, because we had already talked about staff and some other stuff that's going to, you know, probably change a little bit. So I know it looks bad now, but I think we're going to make it look better over the next few months. So, and you know, as far as the endowment fund, I did hear they were kicking around, you know, some numbers like 200,000, but at the end of the day, you know, that's something they have to vote on, and it's nothing that we have control over. But I think they're going to be looking at this. Oh my God, that, you know, if not now, then when, right? So let's hope that we can persuade them.
Okay. Again, can we call the endowment and have a sooner meeting? I just concerned that we were just waiting for months and we're not raising the money and figure out. Let's try to get this thing, and can we come back to the next meeting and have, not laying some numbers down? And I'll tell you another reason is because whether or not we're not saying for bond, against bond, but we got to deliver a bond for the police and fire, and we have to deliver that soon, not in September, but we have to deliver that here in March and get going here. We have to understand it. We got coming up in this meeting probably almost $250,000, or unless I'm wrong, from dredging and the pool over here. That's we've got to pay for that. right? I think when we add the dredging to here, and we got some additional costs here, so what are we gonna do with this money? How are we going to get it? And I guess, I understand the lighting, I don't think I got a good enough answer about the lighting, so I need more information before I kill the lighting. I do understand that it was 111,000, I think, seems like a lot of money, but, you know, I need more information, but I think there's a lot here. I think we all want the project and like the project. We just need to clarify, at least to me, some of here, the funding, so we know about that as we go forward. We're talking about people giving us money, yet we need to ask them, I guess, and then they need to tell us, right?
And we talked to Stephanie about having a special meeting.
Mr. Rebello?
Yeah, one of the questions I had was, you just answered, the lighting's about 111,000.
That's what I think.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, 111, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we can talk about that. That's fine with me. So, how long are we giving, if we pursue the fundraising, which it sounds like we're pursuing the fundraising, I mean, how long do we have? Is there a time limit?
Probably have the
Is
summer.
there?
I mean, I think the mayor made a great point, is I don't think there really is a time limit, because anytime you're going through a grant with DTE, if for lighting, let's just say, but I think we have to be able to say, okay, hey, as a council, we're willing to fund this project up to X, and then if we're able to get the DTE grant, or the funding, or any of this other funding that comes on, it just takes that shortfall, and it comes from those programs.
Right.
But we do need direction, because when we start putting together the construction documents, we need to be able to know that we are moving forward with this project. Now, the alternates and all of that are going to stay alternates, so they're not going to be in there. So right now, though,
Doesn't mean you
without
can't
the
bid them.
alternates
Doesn't
out-
mean you can't bid them.
Correct, we would bid them as part of the project, just as an alternate.
Yep.
So, yeah,
But we need to know, are we moving forward with a $2.5 million, for all intents and purposes, project moving forward with the funding still numerous, whether Kiwanis or any of these boards with the endowment fund, and taking that number and continue to shrink it? But so knowing that that is our shortfall, and that is, we're still committed to move forward, because they're gonna start doing construction
Yeah.
documents next, I mean, in
Like
this calendar.
we said
pretty
earlier,
soon.
these costs creep up, and I've said, and I'm a huge proponent of grant writers, and I wish at some point we had a grant writer, because this is a perfect example that these folks earn their money and pay themselves back with some incredible grants, but to be continued on that. I sort of harp on that a lot, but it's important.
Mr. Vitale,
Yeah, just 2 points. So, one, back in on the lighting, you know, right now we're a retrofit system that is, I don't know how old, but I would like to know what kind of failures we've had on it, because, you know, one of the things in doing residential lighting is everyone is enamored with LED light fixtures, but one nice thing about putting LED bulbs into older design fixtures is that you're just replacing bulbs when they fail. Otherwise, you're replacing fixtures. So there are actually some advantages to the retrofit fixtures. So if maybe we could find out what's failing. Are we having failures or anything like that? And just to back up the idea of the endowment, I mean, we have this endowment. I don't know what it spends money on. I don't know how much money's in it. So I think those are certainly things that we should know when we're going to decide how to fund this.
right? Agreed. Okay, I think, I'll just give you the opinion here. I know we had on here, way down here, Miller Canfield bond engagement. I think that's, you know, it's got to come back, and maybe it comes back at the March 17th meeting, and we bring the library back at the same time here to understand maybe where we've forgotten and start putting penciled to paper, so we understand. Maybe we've already had a vote regarding the endowment, so we can understand where they are, and we can get a better handle on the costs and closing this gap. Again, I think we're all in favor of moving forward. Like the project, just need to understand where we go. Because if we go down to, if we don't raise the money in September, then we're going to have to take it from cash, unless I'm wrong. Right? We'll have to go to the rainy day fund. And maybe that's what we're all going to agree to, but I think we ought to have the option just beforehand, so we know which way we can do it. I know we're not going to know every type of fundraising, but a couple of these are sizable ones that I think a vote would, and it would assist us. So I think if that's good, we'll bring all that back. Okay. Thank you.
I'll just
Yes,
mention,
Mr.
I'll just
Frederick.
mention one other thing, and that is the library millage has been subject to Headley for years and years and years, and maybe it's a way to bring, just move it back to, the percentage that, an equal percentage. And I don't know what that'll generate. I didn't look it up, but that could be another avenue to help replace some of that money.
Thank you. That will, let's just no more. Thank you. Item 7 is request approval of the fee resolution. I know, again, we talked about this at the last study session, which was February 10th.
We did, Mr. Mayor, Mayor and Council, good evening. And I am not here to ask you to spend any money. I'm actually here to ask you to make money. And we hope, the Assistant City Manager and I hope this is the culmination of many conversations around the revisions to the fee schedule for both the certificate of occupancy and the business licenses. As we discussed last week, we are proposing, and I will take this in 2 sections. First, the certificate of occupancy, and then secondly, the business licenses. We are proposing a phased increase to the certificate of occupancy program. If you recall, this is when a new business is looking to come to town. They apply for a certificate of occupancy. We send all of the inspectors out to do an inspection on the building. We're looking at health, safety, welfare, and currently the cost to do those inspections to the city is almost $400. The fee to the person applying is only $50. We are asking council to consider a revision to the buildings and construction fee schedule, implementing a 2-phased increase in that price. For 2025, we are proposing that from $50 we go to $200, and effective 2026, January 1st, we would ask council to approve a fee increase to $400.
Questions? Ms. Russo?
Thank you. No, I appreciate being presented with the phased approach. I think there's a lot less sticker shock from going 50 to 400 in one fell swoop. I think having it phased is a lot more digestible for this body and for the people subject to it. And like you said, it's a one-time payment for new businesses. It's not something that's going to be asked for and have to be paid annually by the existing businesses. Okay.
Thank you for the suggestion.
I will move to approve.
Support. Moved by Ms. Rusi, supported by Mr. Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you. 7B, 7-0. 7B.
Thank you. The second proposal that we have is an increase in the business and licenses for businesses in the city of St. Clair Shores. If you recall, this, the previous ordinance was very archaic with a very long list of businesses that in most instances doesn't even exist any longer. The ordinance was updated back in September, I believe, of 2024. This resolution that we are proposing would bring the fee schedule in line with the now aggregated types of businesses. What we're proposing would be effective January 1st, 2026. It would be an increase in all of the types of businesses, and it would be in addition to the types of businesses would starting next year, include medical and professional offices as well, which is a category heretofore had not been part of the licensing.
Questions? Ms. Burgess? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Rusi, you do.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I know when you first came up to the podium, you joked about you're not here to spend money, you're here to make money. But I think, it's important to make sure the residents understand that this is subject to both. These are rationally, reasonably related to the cost of us providing these services, correct? So it's not us trying to generate revenue in a way. It's just us trying to cover the costs of us providing these type of services to the businesses that are making the application.
Absolutely. It is solely to bring the cost of the license more in accordance with the cost of doing the business.
When we were doing the budget, we realized this hasn't been addressed in quite some time, and that there was a considerable gap with how we
Yes.
know every year it costs more to do the business. You know, the employment contracts go up, built in, they go up. The contracts, you know, for the contracted services go up, the supplies go up, the gas goes up, everything goes up. So when you don't have the fees we're charging in line with that, that gap grows considerably larger and larger and larger, which means the gap has to be made up then by general fund dollars,
Correct.
which could be utilized for something else, not for the services designated to one specific business making the application. Correct?
Absolutely, it would not, it also allows for these licenses not to be subsidized by residents.
Which makes a lot of sense, and this is, again, maybe something we should have been addressing a little bit more historically, but, you know, now we're catching up. I hope going forward, we look at these on an annual or, you know, every couple of year basis, just to make sure they remain in line with what's costing us to provide the service. Either way, I assume the cost will be going up, but it could be going down, and we could address that too then. I mean,
We could do
if things
that.
get easier with technology or whatever, and
Right.
we spend
Moving-
less time on it, I mean, it just, you know, is something that I think we need to keep better eye on, and we have been. The one thing I do want to address, I've addressed before when we've considered these type of proposals, is the food/ice cream trucks, given that we're not talking about actual food trucks, correct? The type of businesses that come in, set up in the brewery for a couple of hours, they're not subject to this particular license, correct?
They are not. This would be the ice cream trucks.
But the ones that go
The vendors
in
that
the
drive
you know,
around the neighborhoods.
That drive around the
correct.
neighborhoods, we want to make sure that they're licensed. We want to know who's driving around the
Right.
neighborhoods selling ice cream to children, you know, in front of their
Exactly.
house, which makes a lot of sense. Right now, it's written though for the proposal food/ice cream trucks, which if I'm combing, you know, I'm a business owner, combing the city ordinances, trying to determine what licenses I need. If I have the type of food truck that will just be parked in front of, you know, Baffin for a couple of hours, I probably would think that applies to me.
So in 10-16, under transient merchants,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, foods,
we actually removed food trucks.
oh, it still says food. It says food/ice cream.
I will look at that because mine actually says just
Yeah, I
ice
think the
cream
one, I
trucks.
want to say the one we received for the study session just said ice cream trucks. The one we have in our packet that you're asking us to approve tonight says food/ice cream trucks.
I apologize for that error.
Yeah, so
It would
this
be
could-
only ice cream trucks.
Yep, this could have been a previous iteration we had received because I know it has changed over the couple of times. So
It
whatever we
has.
pass, I want to make sure that that just says ice cream trucks and not, again, people read the ordinances to,
Yes.
you know, advise themselves what they need. And I just don't want people to think that, again, the type of truck coming in for a couple of hours parking there to sell nachos in front of Baffin for 3 hours would be subjected to a $100 fee.
No, it
Okay,
would not.
great. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Burgess.
Yeah, I think that is long overdue, and it's going to be a great asset to us because we won't have the taxpayers paying out for these services that we do that will be covered by the license. My only concern is the professional and medical. They're going to get sufficient notice, of course.
They will.
But there will be probably some backlash because they've never paid, correct? So, so that will be an addition. I do know that I talked to a couple business owners in the city, and they were flabbergasted to learn that they've been paying all along where the medical and professionals had not. So I think you're going to see that people that have been paying are going to be relieved, that someone else will be paying as well. And so these will be effective January 1st. When are you going to put notices out to the business owners?
So it would be our intention to immediately distribute the letters. The business license fee would stay the same for 2025 for those businesses that had licenses. So we'll send those letters out by the end of this month, if not, maybe by the end of the week, but I'd say by the end of the month for sure. And it's our goal to send the letter to medical and professional offices, letting them know that the ordinance has changed and that starting January 1st, they would be required to pay the fee. The letter that we send to businesses that are still under the license requirement would also include the fee increases effective January 1st, 2026.
Mr. Vitale.
Yeah, I asked in previous weeks how much money we brought in revenue from business licenses, and I was given the number of $23,251.
Correct.
And if business licenses are $10 each, that would then equate to about 2,300
Businesses. They're not,
businesses, 2,325 businesses. I think it's fair to say that once you start adding in all of the medical and professional offices in the city, you're probably going to add about another 1,000 businesses to that. So after a 5-time increase on that current number, we go to 116,000 that'll be brought in, but we add another 1,000 to that, and it becomes quite a windfall. And I also want to address this idea that I keep, it's one of these squishy things that it's a hard and fact. It's a hard fact, okay? Right now, businesses, the medical professional that aren't paying this fee are not being subsidized by anyone because they're not getting anything right now. So there is no inspection that occurs for these medical professional offices, and therefore they're not a burden. They're not being subsidized by anyone because we're not doing anything. But what's going to happen now is we are going to take this on. So we are going to be cataloging this information. And what benefit will they receive from it? I don't know. We're years out now in terms of looking at the types of businesses that actually have fires and violations. We don't have a fire marshal right now. So the fact is, they'll go years without ever seeing a benefit of this. So I will be a hard no on this. I would have been a yes for the idea of raising the existing, because I do agree $10 that's definitely stuck in the 50s. But the expansion, and the expansion that is never given a really good reason. All that was in that packet that we had at the study session was that Community Development Inspection feels it would be good to have a record of all the businesses. Okay. Well, I'm not going to add a bunch of additional costs on the businesses because of how we feel about it. But I can say this, since we did have a study session on it, we all got to sit down and talk about it, which is something we didn't do when this came in front of us beforehand. And everybody who votes for it now will vote for it with a full understanding of what they're doing, and that's why I will be voting against it.
Mr. Rubello.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to remind you of. I don't know if we talked about this at the study session. The letter that's going to be going out, we'll be able to review it. Is this the final copy of it right here?
that is the most recent iteration of the draft. Yes, if you have comments to it, we would appreciate your giving those to us. Yes.
Can you send that out in a separate email, just a separate
that
email
was
with
my
that letter? I
next
think that would be a
question.
little bit better, just a separate email on those, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
And Mr. Vitale, he brings up a good point, the benefits of it. So maybe between now and January 1st of 2026, we can come up with some type of, I guess, a benefit package for them, like
Just invent some
whatever
stuff.
a what?
Nothing.
Okay.
Out of order.
No, it's a
We
good
can-
point. People like to, get something all the time, especially if the prices go up. So,
We will work on that.
Thank you. Mr. Frederick.
Thanks, Mayor. So my question is a little bit different. I just wanted to find it in the minutes. We have two categories here. One's called special event merchants, and the other one is pop-up merchants. I just want to make sure that these are not the ones that are at the farmer's market or things like that, where we're going to be charging anybody that comes in.
So the historical special event merchant, CDI has historically done the vendors for the Memorial Day Parade.
Okay.
We licensed those individuals. That would be the special event merchant. It wouldn't be the farmer's market merchants or
Okay.
vendors that set up. That would be part of that event. The transient merchants are the, rare T-shirt shop
Tents
folks that we
with
get.
flowers or
Right,
hats.
exactly. But not the outdoor sales that would be associated like with Ace Hardware, who
Right.
come to the zoning board of appeals for approval.
And they get permission, and they get
Yes.
multi-year permission now, so I think we've.
They can,
We've
yes.
helped them a little bit. All right.
Yep.
I just wanted that in the minutes so that we're not thinking that
Sure,
all of these events that our great
sure.
Parks and Rec and event folks do are going to have to pay extra in some way. So, okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Motion be in order.
Move to approve.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Fredericks, supported by Mr. Karen. Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. I appreciate the question about the special event permits. We do have a separate ordinance about that, 10-781, which is about the Memorial Day Parade Harbor Cruise vendors that we might want to look at subsequently at some point and get rid of it, update it, do whatever, given if we're doing it under this, or update it to address this set of ordinances. I don't know. There's a whole ordinance section about licensing for those two events, and that's at 10-781.
I will look at that.
We want to look at that and see if we need to make any changes to it to to comport with what we're doing tonight.
Thank you.
Moved by Mr. Fredericks, supported by Mr. Karen to approve the attached resolution updating business license fees effective January 1st, 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
5-2
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Item 8, request to approve the city treasurer finance director.
As all of you are aware, Renee Warnke has officially retired at the end of January. Myself and Assistant City Manager Matt Baumgartner had done a detailed search for the filling of her position. And after doing that search, as we discussed in our work study session, we are recommending to hire John A. Walters. According to the City of St. Clair Shores Charter, the filing of positions from time to time whenever a vacancy exists, they appoint with approval of the majority of council a clerk, a treasurer, and an assessor. This is kind of unique. Our finance director also serves as a city's treasurer. This was implemented several years ago based on the recommendations of the city's former auditor, Plant Moran. So this is why we are bringing this in front of you and we don't bring the other hires, is because the finance director also serves as the treasurer for the city. It does require approval from city council.
Questions?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Frederick. Is there support?
I support.
Supported by Mr. Ribello. Question by Mr. Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, this is not a normal situation to be in, because normally, like I said, these type of hires are done by city manager and typically just needs to be approved as the treasurer for this, but this is a very unique case because this will not be a full-time employee. This is going to be a part-time employee. We're going to be sharing him with Roseville, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be a full-time employee, though.
How?
He will be a full-time City of St. Clair Shores employee.
Is he working 40 hours a week?
He will be.
And how many hours is he going to be working at Roseville?
So right now, his time will be set up that he'll have 3 hours or 3 days that he'll be working in our office, 2 days that he'll be working in Roseville. But the days that he's working in Roseville, he will have access to our computers. He will be able to answer phone calls and take any information related to us.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, okay. It's not a full-time employee, I'm sorry. But I just, when we talked about this last week, I've got an issue with comment that he had on his resume. He stated over the last 9 years, John recommended through tough decision to be made by the City of Roseville City Council result in approximately a $16 million increase in unassigned fund balance to the general fund. He included in that, it was just since, and his updated answer was like, well, no, it wasn't over the last 9 years. It was really just since 2019, 5-6 years. And included numbers from this year, which aren't finalized yet, this budget year, versus using audited numbers, which is what you would expect a finance director to do. So I'm just not comfortable with that response. Also, he's going to maintain his own tax preparation service at the same time. Is that correct?
Currently, right now, he will be working with us as the finance director and as the finance
So that
director
is
with the
correct.
city of
Okay,
Roseville.
that is correct. So he's going to have 3 different jobs as we going on. So I understand hiring's tough. Hiring for this position is tough. But it's also very critical with all the filings, all the data, and the multiple issues I keep pointing out. And even when we get the bills today, I got more issues to point out. We need a full-time director in that position. I don't think it's fair to the employees to have a part-time director.
Mr. Rubello.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually was curious from the study session we had this Monday, and of course, this did come up. So I called him with questions that I thought would be important to people. And one of the questions is, while he's technically on Roseville, time or whatever, we still have access to him. We still can call him about anything. He's online for both cities, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And one of the questions I just want you to reiterate again, full-time employee.
Full-time employee.
So if there's a problem of some kind, okay, and he's not technically in St. Clair Shores, he's still doing business here, if we call him. If the mayor says, hey, something ain't right, or Councilman Karen says something ain't right, he's gonna pick the phone up. And I'm sure it'll work vice versa, he said too. He's very honest about it. If I'm doing time, that's a really bad term. If I'm on St. Clair Shores time, Roseville might call me. And I'm gonna pick their phone call up too. And he said he was gonna cut back on his personal business in order to make sure that this is done correctly. He's an at-will employee?
He will be. He will not be in a union. He'll be an at-will employee.
Okay, so if it ain't working out, we can get rid of him.
That is correct. And to say that as
Okay.
well, there's, off-ramps for us and as well for him. Because, taking on 2 cities finance director positions, if at any time he does feel that's overwhelming and is not able to spend the quality time with his family and be able to balance the work-life balance, there'll be the same thing where he will help us facilitate into that next area.
Because he did say that. He said, listen, if I can't do this, he said, I'm out too. I'm not going to drive myself crazy.
Yep.
That's why I was okay with seconding this. So, for whatever reason, we can get rid of him at any time, period.
Correct. Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. I share Councilman Karen's hesitancy with this arrangement. If this was just being proposed as like a stopgap while we pursued hiring a full-time director who would just be our director, that would be one thing. I could see doing this to allow us more time to do job hunting, hire a headhunter, talk about compensation issues, those type of things. But in terms of going forward, I do have a lot of concerns with sharing a finance director with Roseville, especially while he has a third gig on the side, that he wasn't just, I know when he had with Roseville, he wasn't just doing individual tax returns, he was also taking on other contracted work of a larger scale. And we had asked him about that going forward, and I think his intention is to maintain his sole proprietorship, correct?
So he's going to be working with the city of Roseville and with ourselves. The individual Rosedale Solutions, individual company that he has is going to be put on the back burner because he's not going to have time to work
But
with
on the
both
back,
of us.
on the back.
He's not going to get rid of his company. He's going to keep
Right.
his company as provided. But as you guys are all well aware, as we mentioned during the work study session as well, as that Rosedale Solutions had hired him for the city of Fraser and other municipalities to help them out during this time. And one of the other things as well, as you mentioned, is if this was going to be done short time, if it's working out well, and we have an experienced person who has 11 years as a finance director, who has 9 years as an auditor of Plant Moran, and there is nothing slipping through the cracks, and the books are coming to council, they're being done correctly, everything is being filed on time, at that point, why would we look to kind of move on? And if the second thing is happening where that isn't being done on time, and we do have things falling through the cracks, and we do have things that aren't being done at that point, then yes, it is going to be a short-time relationship because he's not hitting the goals and doing the responsibility as a finance director for the city. And if that's happening, then yes, it will be a short-time experience. If it is working and we are getting the information and everything is happening and everybody is satisfied, then it will be a long-term relationship. So that I would say that is up in the air, and that kind of answers Dave's question. If any time this isn't working, we have off-ramps. And that's going to be the same for him as well. So it is kind of whatever if we want to say it's a short time, we're setting it up saying we think he's going to fail. I would not be making this recommendation if I think he's going to fail. I'm saying this is going to be a long-term because I think he will succeed. Interviewing him and how he was able to impress myself and Matt, having the experience, there also is a lot that's going to say that there's going to be things that he can bring from the city of Roseville that's be beneficial for us. Vice versa, there'll be some things that we can do that'll be beneficial for them. If he's putting in the hours and the time and the commitment, I'm going to be very satisfied for what we have interviewed.
My comment about him being a short-term stopgap, I would probably be okay with that while we pursued hiring someone else full-time, would be similar to what Fraser did with him, where they hire him as an interim to fill in while they pursue somebody else. That would be, I guess, the point of that statement, just like he's had before. I know when we got this for the study session, it was blue paper because it was part of the request to remain confidential at the time. Now it's public information, I guess, his identity, obviously. The salary and everything, the compensation packages was blue paper. It's public information though now, right?
That will be correct. Yeah.
Okay, can you just, if I was a resident at home, I'd be wondering, well, if we're only going to have him in the office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, what does the salary that we're paying him compared to the person we had full-time?
Yep. His salary will be $115,000. Well, so right now, obviously, we're still working on the entire compensation package.
Okay, so it's
But
still,
it's
he hasn't agreed to it yet?
Yes, on paper, we have anything signed? No, because we need council's recommendation to be able to authorize it. So has he signed anything in paper? No, because I'm waiting for council. So the package, though, will be full benefits and full, the typical package that comes with a finance director with your benefits and fringe benefits, but the salary will be $115,000.
$115,000, and the former current finance director salary was $128,000, and then the package of benefits brought up to $196,000, correct?
For the previous finance director, that's correct.
So
Yep.
$126,000 for the previous one, and this would be $115,000 for the split relationship with Roseville. And Roseville will be paying him his own salary.
Their own salary.
That's not part of it.
That is correct, yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Burgess.
I know that we're showing a cost savings of $36,000, but that really isn't accurate because if we don't go with him, we haven't got any viable candidates right now. We would probably have to raise that, correct? What we'd probably have to offer somebody?
I mean, right now, when we posted it at the high of being 139. We received applicants, we interviewed many applicants, and we did not find anybody that was more qualified than what John would be. So if we were wanting a full-time finance director, there's also right now, I believe, nine cities on MML, which is Michigan Municipal League, that are looking for finance directors. And in order to get somebody qualified to even John's standards, we would be probably looking at something closer to about the 175 range.
Okay.
So yes.
And my other question that I brought up during the study session that I thought maybe the residents would like to know is, because it's been brought up that, this is going to be a shared, that he's going to be working for 2 different cities. Are there other cities in the metropolitan area that are sharing a finance director, and how has that been going?
I'll let the assistant, because there are some, and he's more familiar with them than I am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I know in my former community, we shared an individual who worked for City of Berkeley in addition to splitting time with Novi, some work with Oak Park as well, and then River Rouge too. So there is some precedent for it as talented and tenured finance directors, that field starts to dwindle. You see already the trend starting, and I think we'll see it more in the future too, of sharing this vital position, as we saw with city attorneys and some other, vital aspects of city operations.
I think with this, with his resume, and Roseville raves about him, correct?
That's correct.
So Roseville's raving about him, how good, and one of the things that was brought up in the study session as well is that the candidate that did rise up ahead of the other ones that we did offer, and then they didn't respond, is that correct? And the question was asked at the study session, where does John fall into where that person was? I mean, what is the degree of experience, and what are we getting? What kind of bang for our buck are we getting?
So there was an additional candidate that had risen up that we were offering, and they ended up ghosting us and not accepting the position. And if we were to compare experience and expertise, John is significantly higher than this individual. But one of the things that we were looking at was John is going to be split. This person would have been a full finance director with the city. But stating that, there was not even a close comparison between John and our would have been #1 candidate that ended up turning us down.
All right, thank you.
Moved by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Rebello to approve the appointment of John Walters to the position of City Treasurer, Finance Director. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
5-2, it passes. Thank you. And will you have Mr. Walters come to the next meeting, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Probably asking you once.
Bids, contracts, purchase orders, Lock St. Clair, Canal Dredging, and Budget Amendment. Jason Harms, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As outlined in your packet, here tonight to discuss the Lock St. Clair dredging. I know Mr. Spinizzola and Mrs. Pike gave you a brief synopsis at the study session. Basically, we're in our 3rd year of the 5-year agreement, maintenance dredge agreement with Dean Marine that council approved. Every year we contract the AEW to do a depth survey. AEW conducted that survey and recommended a few different options to us, which I know was discussed at the study session. Based on feedback from council, we are recommending the higher end of those recommendations, to go with the higher end. So we're recommending the removal of 965 cubic yards of dredge material from Lock St. Clair Channel in the amount of $112,528.65, with an additional contingency of $11,252.87, bringing it to a total of $123,781.52. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this point that weren't outlined already at the study session.
Mr. Frederick?
Thanks, Mayor. So when we discussed this, one of the things that was brought up was to start I guess it would be a dredging / maintenance fund, and I think Rob kind of alluded to that. Are we going to start that with this year's? We can't, we've already
did the rates.
Yep.
Start that basically in November, we'll send out renewal notices to get people.
Yeah, that would be great. Can we get a mic over there? I don't know, one of these days we have a mic over there. And then we have a mic.
It's in right down front.
Just to reiterate, yeah, we start the renewal process in November, basically.
Okay.
So to go back and ask for that charge now probably wouldn't be right. So it'll be something we'll look at into next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we can do exactly what.
You're hogging the mic. It's in front of you.
Maybe we could do exactly what CDI is doing with the letter
maybe it's a notice that goes out so that they know that this is coming, so. But, yeah, I would move to approve the required budget amendment in the amount of $43,781, the annual purchase order to Deeds Marine for the removal of 165 cubic yards of dredge material from the Loch St. Clair Channel in the amount of $112,528.65 with an additional contingency of $11,252.87 for a total of $123,781.52.
Moved by Mr. Frederick, supported by Ms. Burgess. Now, just highlight, Jason, for us. I mean, it's February 18th, right? And we're making decisions, and we're not really sure. But we up here know, just explain why you have to do the dredging, why you have to do the march, and if we don't do, because Ego won't. I mean, we're a little bit caught in between. We're doing our best guess because of these other concerns. So just highlight that quickly. You know that we know
So
it.
we're coming to you very late we would have liked to come earlier, but we wait until we get the best reports from the Army Corps of Engineers. Eagle only lets us do this up until, I want to say April 1st, Denise? It's April 1st. We only have a window till April 1st.
Right.
So we're hoping now that the ice is going to clear by April 1st. Otherwise, we're going to have to get special dispensation from Eagle to continue into April, which is the fish spawning season, why they prevent you from doing that.
Correct.
We didn't have to attend Water Resources because they granted a 5-year approval when we brought the original contract. We have notified them that we will be doing dredging this week. But as Mr. Lent and I discussed, we still have time. So if for some reason the Army Corps comes out and says, before we start dredging, oh, wait, whoa, we have new information and AEW can go over that material again and make an additional recommendation, it could come in less by the time they actually do dredging.
So we hope. And again, you have roughly 240 boats at the marina?
We have 236 wells, yes, sir.
36.
Yeah.
Mr. Rebello.
Yeah, I just basically wanted to make a copy. This had come up at the study session that we had. And originally, I was sort of going with the lower number, okay? Right. I'm glad we didn't have to vote on it then because I did a little bit more research and it does look like we're below average at this point, like 1 to 4 inches. Everyone sort of looks at Lake Superior, which, going through the numbers and stuff, that's like 5 to 6 inches below normal right now, and that's the part that comes down to us eventually. So I support the higher number. This is one of these things that if you guess wrong, it's sort of a big mistake, and I might have guessed wrong, but. Yeah. I'm glad I did a little bit more research. There was already a motion?
There is. Moved by Mr. Frederick, supported by Ms. Burgess to approve the amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Okay, here you go again, 9B. You're a fun guy up here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wish I could have been Denise, not asking for anything tonight. And I'm here to discuss the emergency generator bid that was put out for the pool pump house, and supplementally some electrical work that needs to be done in the splash pad before we can have the health inspection this spring. Just as a reminder, I'll be really quick. In FY '21 and '22, before myself and Mr. Lent arrived, council approved $50,000 based on information we had received from Eagle that state code had changed, and that the city could no longer discharge the chlorinated backwash water from the pool when it backwashed into storm, which went into the lake. It would have to be rerouted to sanitary. The old pump house did not have a sanitary line going to it, so council authorized $50,000 to install that sanitary line. In '22, they began the work of attaching the old pool pump house to the current bathhouse sanitary line. Mr. Lent and I started, and within 3 days of us starting, they were about to cross into the new pump house. We were already closed for that first part of the summer. Unfortunately, no one had received permission from the state to enter the pump house to do this work. Mr. Lent and I froze it, and we began the discussion with council regarding the new pump house, and then the two projects subsequently became one. So we had the original Eagle violation and then the new pump house, two different items. The sanitary line is not at the correct, for us to connect to sanitary, it's not at the correct height. This happens typically where a lift station is needed. So when they designed the new pump house, they installed primary pumps to lift this water out. They installed redundant pumps to lift this water out. What happened was there's no power. So we had a storm event which knocked out power, which is very odd for this area to be out more than a few days because of the police department. Usually DTE is very responsive with restoring power, but we were out for a significant amount of days. It was unable to pump water because of the lack of power, and the brand-new pump house flooded, which also would have happened to the old pump house if the work would have been continuing on into the old pump house. So after talking to our insurance rep, they covered all the costs of the repairs. In fact, I emailed the council today to let them know that they installed the new filter pump today. It arrived on scene and it is installed. But in order to prevent this in the future, it needs to have a standby generator to activate power, not only for the sanitary, but also for the groundwater, because the pool sits in a high water table. And every day, we are moving a portable sub pump right now just to keep it up and running when the new pumps were being installed. We're doing that every day. That's how much groundwater accumulates in the sub pump pits in that area. This whole piece of property is in a high groundwater table. So we're faced with something I wish we didn't have to do, but we need to do. We were lucky that the insurance carrier covered this time. If we don't take necessary steps to prevent it in the future, that won't be an option to us. In the midst of all of this, the second part of this bid was an addendum. Mr. Abel and I was updating council on the status of the splash pad all summer and the various electrical problems and things we were having. Building maintenance, Mr. Abel and I went to the city manager and we said, these electrical upgrades need to take place. We think it's going to be above your approval threshold. And the city manager said, well, you have the bid going out for the generator. Please put this in that same bid so that we get bid pricing for the work at the splash pad, which we did as an addendum so that council could clearly see what was going towards the splash pad and what was going towards the pool generator. I can answer, before I read the recommendation, was there any questions?
Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. Well, actually, my question's about the recommendation of the recommended motion, so do you want those now, or do you want? Okay. I know what the recommendation states also 15K for the additional transfer switch. Is that being asked for in the motion? It's not, the 15K is not in the motion.
Yes, it's part of the contingency. So I will give you a little backstory on that. As I indicated in the packet, the generators went out for bid, but before they went out for bid, the electrical engineer surveyed manufacturers and found out that most likely the 40 kW generator that we needed would not be available. So they issued a bid addendum to quote a 60 kW generator that we knew would be available, and the company returned it with a 60 kW. Once we received those bids and we realized that we would have to go with the 60 kW because of the time frame and the availability, the electrical engineer came back to us and said, we think it's possible to not only power part of the pump house, but to power the entire pump house, meaning the building would continue circulating, which almost makes it near to impossible. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna happen, but near to impossible that it would flood again. But they said you would have to add a second transfer switch. So we asked for because we haven't awarded the contract, we couldn't do a change order, obviously. So we asked for an amount of the second transfer switch.
Built in with the contingency?
Yes,
Okay.
it's 10% contingency plus the transfer switch.
Okay, so the 10%, the contingency total of 29,952 includes the 15K transfer switch. Okay, now that actually makes it worse than my follow-up question about the math. And the recommended motion includes a budget amendment totaling 194,429.50. If you add the pool for 131,685, the splash pad for 17,840, and then the contingency for 29,952, you get 179,477.
Oh, I apologize. Maybe I made a typo.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because if you see it ends at 50 cents and there's no numbers there and whole numbers you're asking for, so that tipped me off of, well, where's the 50 cents coming in? There's nothing ending in 50 cents, you're adding up to 50 cents. So then I got my calculator out. If you add the pool, the splash pad, the contingency, you get 179, 477. I thought, okay, maybe the transfer switch 15 is separate, which adds up then though to 194, 477, which is closer to the budget amendment total of 194, 429 and 50 cents, but not there either.
That's my fault.
Yeah, so
Councilwoman.
anytime there's a total in there, I always check. And like I said,
apologize.
the 50 cents kind of was like, okay, something's amiss here because you're not asking for anything that's not a whole dollar amount.
Yes, I apologize for
So
that.
whoever makes the motion maybe doesn't want to include the total, but if we're approving a budget amendment, I think it kind of does. So you might want to double check the math and just make sure we're approving the intended amount and the right amount. John has his calculator out too.
I'm looking for it. I hit it
I
somewhere.
did it like 4 times because it was not, I was trying to make the numbers work and I just couldn't get it.
No, he wouldn't.
Dustin has his pen up.
Oh, I was gonna say, because it's a budget amendment, you said it immediately, because it's a budget amendment, it'll have to be the correct.
That's why I was
total price,
thinking,
yes.
yeah.
So then
So I just want to make sure we're not doing something we have to fix at some point. We can do it right tonight.
Mr. Rebello.
You're correct, Councilman. 179, 477.
What is that number then?
It's
179.
179, 477.
477. So it's even cheaper than we thought.
saving money, see?
179.
179, 477. 179, 477.
That works.
Okay, so I'm gonna just take the splash pad,
Yes, ma'am.
which has been, I don't know, 25, 26 years old. How old is the splash pad?
2001. It's 20,
Okay,
24,
so yeah.
24 years old.
So without doing this, what happens to the splash pad?
It doesn't open this summer.
Okay, well. You're relocating the pump house? What are you gonna do with the,
At the splash pad?
yeah,
So what's happening at the splash pad is I included a whole synopsis packet of the work that's been done at the splash
Yes.
pad over the few years. But basically, we're at the stage where all the electrical is corroded inside
It
the
looks
filtration.
shot.
Yes, which happens over time from the chemicals. And so the scope of the work is they come into the room and they replace the motor starters, the circuit breaker panels, and run all new electrical to the equipment in the splash pad room. That's the sense of what they're doing. Because the equipment's overheating, because the wire and the motor starters can no longer handle the load due to corrosion and deterioration.
and the pool pump house.
Yes.
Without fixing the pool pump house, we have no pool.
The pool pump house will run. However, if the power goes out again, it will flood again, and we'll be back at this same spot.
Okay,
What I'd like to note to council is we were lucky, not lucky, I would have liked to end Labor Day. We had a very successful season, increased attendance by 16,000 last summer at the pool. We were lucky that it happened at the last 4 days because this equipment that was
right.
was not readily accessible. It's taken us several months to get the new filter, pump, and motor in. If this happened during the summer, it would more than likely end the summer.
Okay. I say this as a joke. When you usually come up, it's not usually, $3,000 or $4,000. It's like, it's expensive stuff for this. So, but we're just not voting on a pool. It's much more about when you have a municipal pool, you have great community stuff and great community pride, and there's a lot to go with a pool. So, always been a fan of the pool. I think this is fantastic. Goes great with the harbor that we have.
Right. It's why Lock St. Clair, so many people choose Lock St. Clair,
Yeah,
is because of the.
It's
pool.
great. There's a lot of stuff that comes out of a municipal pool that it's just not all about the money, but it's good community pride and good things going on in there, and great family stuff, and you see it firsthand.
Right. It's clear clear based on the attendance, how much it jumped in 1 year, that your investments are making a difference.
Yes.
To have our attendance jump from 20-some thousand the previous year to 36,000 last year means that the work you're doing, or we're all doing together, is benefiting the city.
And that's a great testament to you, because you do a great job promoting the pool and everything that's going on down there. And I think that absolutely helps too. So, with that, I could go on and on about benefits of a community pool that I was reading about, because sometimes you forget about it over time. But do we have a motion,
We do
Mayor?
not.
Okay. I will move to award emergency, the generator for the pool pump house and the pool bathhouse in the amount of $131,685, and improvements to the splash zone at Veterans Memorial Park in the amount of $17,840, plus a contingency of $29,950 due dollars to Corby Energy and budget amendment totaling $179,477.
Right.
Yes,
And no
179,477.
No 50 cents.
Okay.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Rebel, supported by Mr. Karen. Mr. Karen?
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to ask for a commitment from you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Stop coming back.
I like seeing all of you,
Can we get
but
through one season, maybe? No.
Really?
No, I think, yeah, it's unfortunate we had, the losing power turned into basically a catastrophic failure of everything that we had built.
yes.
Because no one had thought of that scenario when it was all designed, and so that's what this is really fixing. Getting the generator in place at the pool house, so if we do lose power, everything else still operates, considering the new layout with the sanitary line that wasn't like that before. Yeah, it just would have been nice if this was caught through all the redesign and everything, but it's just a scenario that they didn't think of. In terms of the splash pad electrical, yeah, I know that is desperate need of upgrades, so I think it is good to include it with this, and we did have an outside electrical engineer go through and spec it out, correct?
Correct.
And that's, okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Lent, and then we'll take the motion.
I know, Councilman Karen, you were joking about not coming back, but unfortunately, that kind of was the motto prior, is what led to us to have such a dilapidated pump house for so long, and our splash pad needing so many repairs, is being scared. And I appreciate Jason not being scared and saying, we got to bring this to council, because we have to, we're not kicking the can down the curb. We have to be able to get the pool up and operating, and not, as he kind of mentioned before, having the pool closed down when we first got here because of disrepairing a pump house that was over 60 years old and dilapidated. But I know you were joking with that, but I appreciate him coming.
Partially.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0. Jason, thank you.
And I will start updating you through construction updates through
Appreciate it.
Mrs. Pike as soon as the project starts. Thank you.
9C is allocation of funding under cost share agreement with Macomb County Department of Roads at 10 Mile and Little Mac. Brian Babcock, Director of the DPW. And Brian, great job by your department. The employees there over the snowstorm we had over the weekend. They plowed Friday, they plowed Sunday, put in a lot of hours. Great job. So I'm probably going to hear that in our council comments, but on behalf of this body here and clearly residents in this community, the DPW, the men and women of your group did a fantastic job. So job well done.
Thanks, and I'll pass that along. Definitely, they're very committed employees, working all day long, through the night. Those were two big storms.
They were two big
Back to
storms,
back. It's been
and
tough.
they were out very quickly, right? I mean, we had the major roads done, and they were right to the side streets. And I would also say, I mean, they did a great job. Good planning too, it seemed like, as we talked many times on the phone. It was good planning from your department so that we wouldn't have just people all over the place. You know how we have to have hours, they have to have rest. It was just a good effort all the way around and evaluating the situation. So, and it showed when the streets were plowed quickly. So, thank you.
Thank you. So for this item, we're here requesting approval of a joint project with the Macomb County Department of Roads. This is for a paving project in the intersection of 10 Mile and Little Mac, which anybody that's drove that intersection knows it's horrible. It's in really, really bad shape.
I can't believe it's a 4 here on the Pazer. It says 4,
Yeah.
It should be a 1.
Yeah, it's, when I have to send our guys in cold patch in that intersection, it's so dangerous. We come in at like 5 in the morning before traffic gets out there. You can't do it during the day. It's too dangerous. So anyhow, this is a project that it would be a joint project with Macomb County. The cost would be split 50-50. 10 Mile is a county road, Little Mac is a city road, so it'd be a joint project with them if so approved.
Questions? Mr. Bello. Ms. Rusi.
Thank you.
I
have a question about the, I guess, the total project cost. Right now, the total project cost is agreed to be $258,560. We also, I was just trying to figure out how they arrived at that. I know what we have is just a AEW preliminary engineer's estimate from, 2023, but things have not gotten cheaper. They got more expensive. And here it says the project cost is $403,937. So it's substantially more in the estimate from AEW from, over a year ago compared to what they're defining as a project cost in Exhibit A of the agreement. Has the scope changed? I know if you look at Exhibit A, they're taking out things like sign and pavement markings. We don't have an amount or a cost share in there. That said, it is defined in the agreement as part of the total project in paragraph 2, and we do have those things discussed in the AEW project engineer's estimate. And it doesn't even add up to be that much to make the project considerably a whole lot less compared to the $258,560 that we have agreed upon in Exhibit A. So I'm wondering how they derived it as a project cost, taking into account the AEW's engineer's estimate we received in the packet dated November 28, 23.
Well, the 258 costs is quite a bit less than the AEW estimate, correct? That's how I was reading it.
Correct,
Okay,
that's the thrust of the question is.
When we originally had this discussion with them, we were required to have AEW do an estimate and submit it, and I believe they were using their numbers. The county, as I understand, the way they're gonna do this, they bid out, concrete patching across the entire county, so they get some better prices. So their pricing is better, and that's how the numbers were adjusted, is they were using their estimated costs. But when it goes out to bid, it could even be different, and I think there's something in here stating that.
So the county has an estimate too, and that's what we're getting the estimate in the contract, the project cost in the contract from the county's estimate?
Yeah, through the county's estimate.
Do we have a copy of that?
All we have is this Exhibit A that.
Yeah, okay, so
Get
we
more
didn't get.
details if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be good if we could get more details, because that's a drastic drop, and again.
Sure.
The AEW estimate, which is the only thing we had to go on in the packet, is from 2023, and we all know from, previous experiences, prices aren't going lower, they're going higher. Now, the fact that they have, if they're using bidding or anything, that would be, I'm just trying to, I always try to figure out where the numbers come from, and I was stumped on this one, given the huge change from the 2023 AEW estimate to the number we're agreeing upon is the project cost.
The detailed calculations for this, and for that.
At the end of the day, it's contractual, but I don't want them coming back to us and say, no, actually, you're agreed to more, it's an important project. I just want to make sure we're doing this one time and we know what we're getting ourselves into, compared to having them come back and say, no, actually.
Okay.
It's a more substantial project than we had initially contracted for.
I was just, in the exhibit, is there an exhibit A? Is it- Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was
So,
talking about.
That is kind of their estimate that they give. As Brian mentioned, when we ask them to do the funding, we send our estimate. So that's why AEW sent our estimate. So they do have a breakdown.
Yep.
Why it's significantly different, we don't know,
That
but
was
as
my,
Brian
yeah,
said.
that was my question. I only have the AEW estimate to go off of, which one I'm trying to figure out how again, the amounts, and like we have even on some of these, I guess, sign and payment markings, we might just be handling that as a city, correct? I mean, because that was in the estimate, that's in the contract, but Exhibit A, that's, not included in any amount or for the cost share. There's some blanks in the Exhibit A, and they're not just blanks, like they forgot to put numbers in there or dashes, which indicates they were contemplating, they determined not to put numbers in. So, same with contingencies. There's no contingencies, at least according to Exhibit A, and we always include contingencies, at least when we contract on our own, but we're not being asked to build that in.
So, and.
Yeah, we'll forward on the.
Yeah, we'll forward on the.
Yeah, there's a lot of information from, again, it's not like I don't trust the county. I just want to make sure we know what we're agreeing to, because this is a lot different than our own estimate. And there's not some numbers in Exhibit A that will definitely be part of the project, so I'm wondering where those are coming from too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frederick?
Thanks, Mayor. So what is the start date of this if we approve it, do you think?
Well, they're saying 2026, but we're going to push for late 2025 because
All right.
I don't want to go through another winter with that intersection.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And the reason I was asking is I know that the consumers thing we saw today is going down Little Mac from 10 Mile to wherever, right, to north. So I just want to make sure there's no overlap.
Yeah.
Or if there is overlap, how do we take advantage of whatever it is they're doing if in fact there's some sidewalk to be repaired or some of that. So, anyway, so this may not even happen till next year, so hopefully
We're
we're
going to call
not.
Brian Santo tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So I would make a motion to approve the cost share agreement and allocate $129,280 from account number 202-449-980, Major Street Fund, Capital Outlay.
Moved by Mr. Frederick. Support. Supported by Mr. Karen. Mr. Rubello.
I have a quick question. How is this going to affect, if it's going to affect at all, the traffic patterns that we've got construction going on Jefferson 2 this summer? Do you anticipate any?
Those two shouldn't conflict. And they'll do this in probably 4 phases to maintain traffic through the intersection.
Okay.
Intersections are tough, but
They can get down to Jefferson.
Yes, yeah.
Because we're going to already have a tough enough time in some cases anyways. Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 7-0. Brian, thank you. Item 10 is consent agenda.
I'd like to separate 10A.
10A. For the motion to approve.
And I'll move to approve the rest.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Karen, supported by Mr. Frederick, to approve the consent agenda other than 10A. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yes, Mr. Karen, on 10A.
Yeah, in the invoice approval list, under, one item appeared that both under police and fire, but it was a payment to Cunningham Limb.
What page?
Page 5 and 7. It's for gas return at police and fire, but I would think anything payment to Cunningham Limp would be showing up underneath the, I guess another clarification is needed. If all future payments for the police and fire building are going to show up under the ARPA grant CAP projects, or they show up under the CAP project public safety buildings. So there's those two transactions, and then there's a third one that is to DTE Energy under fire. That was for the removal of the overhead power line central for $19,000. I think that also should be under the construction project funds, not out of the general fund.
Yes, I will make that clarification, make those changes, and review how it's being currently separated.
Great.
And get back with council on that.
Thank you. So move to approve 10A.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Karen, supported by Mr. Frederick to approve 10A bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Thank you. Number 11 is updates and follow-ups from council meetings. Mr. Lent.
Mr. Vitale asked if the dirt removed from Jefferson Relief Sewer Project could be used as backfill for the beach/park. We will work with the SCMSD and Eagle to establish if the fill will be sufficient to use as backfill at Memorial Park. But based on prior conversations with Eagle, I don't believe they would allow potentially contaminated soil to be put back into the water.
Where do we get the potentially contaminated, the fact that it was road or? I mean, where would we have to otherwise get soil? I guess is my question.
I can find that out.
Okay.
Yep, Mr. Karen asked for the generator shared use agreement to include verbiage that protects us from being sued if the generator were to lose power. The attached language is enclosed from that recommendation change. Mr. Vitale mentioned having a drop-off center for cardboard recycling instead of using priority waste. We are looking into other companies that might provide this service. Mr. Vitale mentioned the poor condition of the Shores Theater and said we should start thinking about not extending these permits any further. The building permits on this development is expired, but the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical permits are current. The last inspection was in November 2024 for a rough plumbing, and it was approved. Code enforcement has wrote 3 property maintenance violations in 2024. That enforcement action, which consisted of 6 different code violations, resulted in fines of $1,080. Code enforcement will continue to aggressively enforce ordinance violations within the construction site. Mr. Vitale mentioned a large pothole was created on the street at 22007 Ridgeway during the construction of a new home and asked who would be responsible for fixing it. The engineering inspector visited the site and a notice of violation was issued to fill the hole and clean the lot.
Do we know, because I will say that the next day we got the snowstorm and it hasn't really relented since, so in fairness to them, I don't know if they ever got the opportunity to.
I am not positive. I will go tomorrow.
Okay, I haven't been able to tell. It's so ice covered. It's
probably full of snow right now.
It's full of snow right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, whenever we get a thaw, I think Sunday we're supposed to be 32, maybe Monday. I don't know.
Mr. Vitale mentioned that the library basement flooded and that the documents could be potentially lost. He discussed adding mold armor, a mold remover, and disinfectant to help preserve the documents. He asked for an update on this. From Stephanie, thank you for the inquiry about the local history at the library. I want to assure you that most frequently used materials were saved when the mold was discovered. These preserved items include manuscripts, Macomb County books, local phone books, yearbooks, and local newspapers. The items that did include remediation were the 1957 Sentinel with mold on the outer edges and the first and last pages, as well as a handmade 50th anniversary quilt created for the city that has been affected by mold. Additionally, there are books containing statewide historical information that also require remediation. While many of these books may be available from other libraries, professional treatment would be necessary to ensure continual local access for our patrons regarding mold removal. The mold armor product is not recommended for the use on porous surfaces. The preferred remediation method for moldy books and paper invoices involve freezing the affected materials followed by using specialized vacuum filtration to remove the debris. Stephanie has also attached a detailed documentation from the Northeast Document Conservatory Center outlining this process in greater depth.
So can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yep.
So what originally brought this to my concern was that we haven't allowed anyone to see any of these historic documents now for quite some time. So what was detailed in there was an old copy of the 57 Shores Sentinel and a quilt. Okay, so that means to me then these other documents, all these other research should be available. Is that correct? I understand, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but just, should there be any reason that people who want to access this information to research the date that their home was built or some of the other research projects that people do, there should be no reason that the quilt and the 57 Sentinel shouldn't impact any of that. So they should be available.
I believe they are, and I don't know that.
Can you confirm that can we
I can
confirm that with an
confirm
email, right?
Yep.
That would be
Yeah,
good.
because that's what I want to know.
Good idea.
Keeping things from residents that really it's a quilt and a newspaper.
Yep.
So.
Mr. Karen.
Maybe Dave can get us.
Yeah, just to clarify on that was earlier, and I mentioned one of the staff members, Heidi. She'd be the one to go down and retrieve it. So we don't allow public to go down there to get anything, but a staff member will go down to retrieve a book or a document that people need to do their research on.
Okay.
And then, you're good?
Remember, is that what you're saying?
You're good, Mr. Lynn?
Yeah, that's it.
And then I just want to commend Denise Pike. I mean, fantastic. We got a grant, right, for $577,000. Speak about it from SEMCOG, and it's exciting news.
We did get a grant from SEMCOG or through SEMCOG to do the LED conversions for our traffic lights, or DTE street lights, not traffic lights, I apologize, throughout the city. And so we'll be able to save about $80,000 annually in lighting bills once the conversion is over. The funds are not available until 2028, I believe, was the year. But we are going to ask if we can do the work and get reimbursed.
So plenty of try to pull it forward. So just a commendable
Nicely
job,
done.
and we're always looking. So excellent job by CDI. And with that, we'll go to comments by individual council. Ms. Burgess.
It's already late, so I'm just doing a couple small ones here. I just want to say how great the snow removal was throughout the city, too. I know we already mentioned that, but it was amazing just kept coming. Couple things events that are coming up I just want to let you know about. We just got about 3 days left. If you're interested in the St. Isaac Jogues auction gala that is happening on March 1st, which is a week from Saturday, and it is the disco theme, so it says, get your boogie on, rock your most dazzling disco looks. From the 70s icon, or just shine as your fabulous groovy self. It is Saturday, March 1st. It's $65, and it's going to be held at the Polish American Century Club. And if you have any information or want some additional information, just go on Facebook, St. Isaac Jogues, here in St. Clair Shores, off of Madison. And the second one I want to bring up is I am a part of the Crisis Club, which I brought up here several times already. We're having our annual sports night that is happening on April 7th. And that is $100. It is the Final Four. Going to have big screen TVs all over. Going to have great 50-50 raffles, giving away TVs. On your ticket, we'll have a halftime and a final number. And if your numbers match, you win a TV. We're going to have wheelbarrows of cheer, lots of baskets, silent auctions. I know some of them that have already, some of the items that will be up for bid for silent auctions are like a trip to Motor City Casino with hotel and credits and dinner, and just got a lot of good stuff coming up. And it's to support people in crisis. And it's been around since the 1950s. I've been on the board probably for about 10 years now, and absolutely great opportunity to have fun for sports night. You can rent a table, or you can buy a table, or individually it's $65 a piece.
Where's it at?
It is going to be at the Greek Assumption Church, and the dinner will be put on by Marchiori Catering. And great nights, great night. And everybody be safe, and that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Bello.
What got moved on at Sentinel number 57?
1957.
1957?
I don't think that's the same.
It's impossible.
I agree.
That would have to be the community
That was
news.
before your selling ads.
It was before
Before you were
C&G
born.
existed.
Before the owners were selling ads. Anyway, so I had a nice conversation. The parade director, Pam Mason, and I sat down with the Arsenal of Democracy, and they have signed on. I was a little nervous because they had moved so far away from St. Clair Shores, and they're coming all the way across some expressway. So people, when they see it, might think it's an invasion of some kind, but they have signed on with the parade. Had a nice, again, like I said, conversation with John Land. Over the last weekend there, everyone knows we had a lot of snow. I want to say special thanks to some of the snow brigaders, all of the snow brigaders that came out and did a whole lot of houses for seniors and elders. We also got on TV, okay, which it was a positive spin for St. Clair Shores. Some of it went national on Fox 2. So great accolades to the volunteers of St. Clair Shores. When that stuff goes out, it just makes St. Clair Shores look like a real top-notch town, which we are. And even sometimes this stuff catches on. A guy from Warren called me up. He wants to meet up and just sort of see how we do things. And they're going to do one in Warren. They're going to do one in Warren, according to the guy. So good things catch on. So I want to thank WWJ and Fox 2 News for coming out and covering our event.
And Dave, I want to commend you for spearheading the whole project. So it's a great project, and this weekend more than ever, people needed it, and they were there, as you said. So terrific job on your part in doing this.
9 Mile and Mac, okay. We were talking a little bit earlier about one of the agenda items for 10 Mile and Little Mac. 9 Mile and Greater Mac, still a lot of complaints about how it's sort of cockeyed a little bit. And if we can look into, cost-wise anyways, and see what it would cost to straighten that intersection out. The chiefs here don't know if there's any more accidents than any other place, but...
You talking about the curve in the road between Cavalier and 9 Mile?
No, I'm talking about right 9 Mile and Mac. It's just sort of, it's a tough left turn.
Oh, yes, I understand.
The folks at Royal Bryan Ford watch accidents and watch near misses all the time. So
okay,
if that's something maybe in the future we could get a price on. And Matt, are you there?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
here.
Is your thing ready? Okay.
So
Okay,
the
no
answer's
problem.
no.
So I'll just cut it short.
There you go.
Everyone be safe, keep cool. And for the people that have been here for over 3 hours, I know Kettler here, he stuck it out, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Rusi.
Thank you. First off, I want to congratulate the Parks and Rec Department on another successful daddy-daughter dance on Sunday. I went with my daddy, as I always do. I give out a raffle basket and things like that during it, and it's always just so heartwarming to see all the little girls dancing with their dads or grandpas or uncles or whoever, was with them, sharing some special moments with them. I know they'll have those memories forever. So it's an event I'm really proud the city puts on to help create those memories, and I know they've been doing it for a long time. It sells out every year, and I've gone every year since I've been elected, and I've seen so many little girls go from being very little girls to, aging out of the event and just watching them grow up. And it's so cool to see that we get a lot of the same people who made this a family tradition, I guess. So it was a wonderful event. So hats off to Parks and Rec again for all the work in putting this on. I know it means a lot to the community. That said, when I was there, one of the dads asked about any mother-son type events because he has a wife and he has a little boy and was wondering if there's anything for them. And I said, I know we've talked about that, and I would bring that up again as maybe something I know was tried years and years and years and years ago and wasn't a huge success, but maybe we could talk about, something going forward to try again, because I know there's a lot of mothers and sons, or aunties and nephews who would love to go to a event like that too. So he's 4.5. I'm just saying he's a good age for it. And my nephew. Okay. So also congratulations to the Shorewood Kiwanis for their wild game dinner. A lot of money being raised in that room for the kids in the community. And I ate more types of animals than I think I've ever eaten before, but it was very adventurous, and all the food was very good, and it's all for the kids. So it was nice to see people really come out and support that. The room was packed, and people seemed to be very generous with the raffles, and that all goes back to the community. Congratulations to Brown Family Bookstore on their reopening with a new owner, so check it out. It's nice to have a little local used bookstore in the community. It's not, a lot of communities can say that anymore, so they just reopened with a new owner who's really excited. And it's definitely worth checking out to see what kind of little treasures and, you can find in there. And the Champion Health on Harper ribbon cutting was also another good event, and it was nice to see the community come out and support another new business in the city. City business, so I want to first thank Bob for the attorney opinion we got this afternoon on the house moving. I haven't had an opportunity to review it yet. I did see it come through, though, so thanks for looking into that. I would like, if this wasn't included in the email, copies of the contracts involved and permit apps and those type of things too, documentation related, just so I can review those as well. And I guess the overall thing is, we receive these periodic updates from Chris Ray's about the project, the police and fire projects. We received one, I think, that week. And it didn't mention the change from the house demo to the house move. I know some of that seemed to have been out of our control, that said, contractually. I know a lot of these demo contracts include salvage and scrap. I always envision that more like wires, pipes, and bricks, not whole houses. That seems a little bit expansive. But it would be nice to be kept a little bit more, I guess, up to date on things, especially when they change from the scope of what council was aware of. We literally didn't know this was happening until a resident with eyes drove by and saw the house up on stilts or bricks or whatever it was up on. And council sent a question upon receiving that because, me and John got that text while we were staying literally at the wild game dinner eating elk or whatever we were eating. And it was kangaroo. Yes, we did eat kangaroo and moose, all sorts of things.
Camel?
The camel was
come
good.
on.
It was camel.
Cametrolls, yes,
Camel
cametrolls.
gawunkies. It was very wild.
You'd expect it.
But that's not the point.
But that's not the point. And then we literally had to look each other, respond back like, I don't know, and tell the resident, we don't know, but we'll be looking into that. And that's not a cool position for council to be in when it's literally a house on stilts or whatever, jacked up, wherever it was, compared to what we were under the impression was going to occur, especially given, the contracting of a demolition company for it. And again, you think salvage, scrap, whatever, it's like, okay, they're going to take pipes or the gutters or bricks, not the whole house being driven down Jefferson the next week. It's just weird. So if we could just be kept a little bit more up to date, so if residents have questions about very visible aspects of the project, we don't have to say, we don't know, but we'll look into it, because that's not a good position for council to be in.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Karen.
Thank you. Yeah, just on that same note, getting surprised is never fun, especially when you've approved contracts and all of a sudden there's changes like that in there. Bob, I did read your memo in terms of laying it out. We talked even further after that. I'm confident there's no impropriety of how anything happened, but just how the responses were and how this was all handled, it just gives this feeling of an appearance of an impropriety given who all was involved. And that's what we gotta, as a government, you always want to avoid. Definitely avoid the impropriety, but you also want to avoid the appearance. You don't want anyone questioning, what's going on. And I think in terms of when you first ask the question and you get answers of well, we received this request, but with no other details following up, and then we have to ask for all the details to really find out. And quite frankly, we were able to put together the details on our own pretty quickly to know, hey, more of this should have been communicated beforehand. So hopefully we can have that going forward in terms of this big of a project. And like Councilwoman Rusi said, we just received the update from Mr. Ray's that morning, and no mention of the house moving. Not even just the changes, but the fact that the house is being prepped to be moved as part of his update wasn't even included. So again, it creates that appearance issue and, forces us to have to dig deeper and dispatch Bob to start doing some digging for us. So hopefully we can do better in the future. First off, State Representative May-Song, hey, thank you for sticking it out with us tonight. Greatly appreciate that. Thanks to the wonderful map makers in Lansing. We get 3 state representatives, so because we are just so lucky here in St. Clair Shores, so thank you for being here. Additional state news, about a week and a half ago, we got some great news thanks to State Representative Alicia St. Germain and another group of representatives that have been working on trying to get EGLE to focus more on what's going on at the Coon Retention Basin from Oakland County that discharges into the Red Run drain and through Oakland County, or all the way through Macomb County. Prior to, council had passed a resolution supporting legislation to put more restrictions on what they can do with that, or at least begin to notify Macomb County when they do discharges, since it does have to go through our waterways. EGLE actually is reopening discussions on the permit for that retention basin, and is actually going to be driving Oakland County to start to have to do studies on how they can actually put in improvements. And it's taken a lot of legislative pressure to get EGLE to take those steps. But also, all the work the last 8 years Commissioner Candace Miller has been doing of having the mantra of, we're going to do it first to show them what can be done, and that's going to begin to apply the pressure to the other counties to begin to improve. So, big thanks to those state representatives are putting on the pressure to EGLE to get improvements over the Coon Drain for them. It's just not the volume of the discharge, but also get the E. coli level down, get the chlorine level down, since it is going through all of our waterways. So great job for that, and look forward to more updates from her going forward. Just before this meeting, I did send an email out to council on animal care, and specific to, we've had residents here talking about basically a cat overpopulation at one house. There's other places where it's not a feral cat situation, but it's a overpopulation inside of a house that we've become aware of. And during the discussion back in December by the resident, they had made a mention of when they're going through the verbatims that came from animal control in terms of what they're writing in their log reports, that they were writing citations for these issues and that our court was just dismissing them in terms of what was written in their narrative. I had asked Andrea over at the court for 2004, give me the data. What did we do with all the animal citations on how were their disposition? And it showed we weren't just dismissing them. Some of them were, 80% of them were being processed correctly or paid off. People were admitting fault and paying the ticket. And what kind of came out of that is that, all right, and I want to thank Bob as well, because he did dig into a couple of the cases for me over the court to find out what happened at a couple of these addresses, that we were writing citations. People were admitting fault, paying the ticket, but there was no follow-up in terms of making sure, did we get any compliance in that? So Friday, I had a very good meeting with myself, Bob, Matt Hoff from his office, Denise, Chief Allen, and Chief Randazzo from Animal Control and his operation manager, Jillian. And basically, going forward for these type of cat issues where there's an overpopulation, they've been writing tickets for your over the number quantity, which is a civil infraction where you can just pay a ticket. If animal control feels that the overpopulation has kind of crossed the line, the cats aren't in a good care situation anymore. And if you get an overpopulation in a house, you're definitely not in a good care situation. They can, to work and use the animal care clause in our ordinance, which is a misdemeanor, and at least we'll force them into court. So that way we won't lose track of these things going forward, and the misdemeanor can't go away until we get some level of compliance in that. So, so that was a great agreement that we had between everyone in the room, between us and animal control going forward. there's be some administrative help from code enforcement in some of those cases where they can't get access to the house, maybe use code enforcement codes to try to do that, to, ascertain the situation. But we do have a few of these around the city, and is definitely a poor animal care situation when it gets into that scenario. So appreciate everyone kind of coming to that agreement, and let's see how that kind of works going forward. Last thing, in terms of, great job by DPW in terms of how fast they were clearing the side streets. A little confused on Sunday. We put out one post saying, it looks like we're gonna start doing the side streets, but we're not gonna do a snow emergency. And then 3 hours later, it turned into a snow emergency. Our crews continue to go out there, and I ended up at a traffic jam right in front of my house because guy across the street was having a NASCAR party trying to watch the Daytona 500, which was just watching commentators for 5 hours until the race actually started. But basically it's like they couldn't get through because it was, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had cars, and the snow emergency wasn't supposed to start till 1 a.m. and that. So, and I was like trying to think of all the other times we've done a snow emergency where we've done side streets. I don't recall maybe we have. I don't recall a time where we did it without a snow emergency.
Yeah,
to make sure those cars were being moved. And I appreciate the gung-ho-ness of the staff to just want to keep going and that. But once you knew you weren't going to get through all the city, it might have been better maybe just hold off, let people get cars out the street, let the snow emergency take place, especially if maybe overnight would have been less cars in the street, because I know it would just slow everyone down as they're going through the day every time they run into the cars like that, so.
Understood. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And I think you're right. I don't recall we've done side streets without a snow emergency. I don't think we have. Mr. Frederick?
Yeah, and I can tell you, no matter when I shovel my snow, the second I'm done, somebody comes by and plows it right into my driveway again, but that's all right. I was extremely happy with DPW. They did an awesome job. And to follow up on that, as the weather gets warmer, I know that there were some streets where the snow just got packed from people driving on it, and they couldn't get it off there. Are we gonna do so, will we salt any of those, or?
No.
Nothing, or no more scraping and all, just, we'll just let it go? Because I know there's.
Well, I mean, we haven't done that in the past, and I would tell you anyways, the salt bin is not, we wouldn't even want to attempt that with what we have in there, and.
With what we might have left.
Correct. I mean, I believe Mr. Babcock now, and Dustin, you could probably correct me, but I think we're now getting orders from last year's numbers, because we didn't use all of last year, and then we're getting trains from last year, so, correct?
That's correct, yep.
All right. Okay, so,
You gotta drive safe.
well, yeah,
I mean,
you gotta drive safe,
there's no question.
but I know that, I mean, it's still snow. It's snow on top of the.
I know.
And it's packed down.
It is.
But you're right, absolutely. I held this up earlier in the meeting, the notice of your water will be shut off if your water main's broken. We've got a little thing on the back that says, we estimate a minimum number of blank hours for completion of the necessary repairs. I mean, should we have a number written in there, or should we have it printed in there? Just something that Brian maybe can look at. Because if you get that at your house, it's like, is it an hour, is it 2 hours, is it 5 hours? So just a question, I'll give you that to remind you. Let's, maybe it's a minimum of 5 hours. That way we can be heroes if it's done in 2. I don't know. All right, I just want to give a big shout out to Senator Hertel, Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, Governor Whitmer for the nice proclamation for my mother earlier in the evening, as well as County Exec Mark Hackle, and then also Mayor and this council for indulging a 100-year-old woman who's been here and given a lot of time and energy and volunteering and all that for this community. So much appreciated. Thank you very much. We talked a lot about the library tonight, so I was feverishly trying to shorten these comments a little bit. But Storytime registration begins February 24th. Online calendar, you can go on the online calendar in person or by phone, or always by email. If you're coming to Think Spring Storytime on Saturday, March 8th, it's from 2:30 to 3:30, children 3 and up. Storytime full of stories and songs. They'll be paint a plant pot and make seed balls using native wildflower seeds. And that registration begins February 27th, all the usual ways. Join the Cultural Committee for a presentation by the Detroit Institute of Arts on Feb 24 at 6:30 p.m. in the library. This presentation focuses on exploring and discussing works of art created by African-American artists. Registration, again, it's ongoing in all the usual ways. And by the way, the phone number 586-771-9020. In celebration of March's Reading Month, library invites artists big and small to design a one-of-a-kind bookmark. The theme this year is libraries and communities. Winners will be selected and winning bookmarks will be printed and distributed throughout the circulation desk throughout spring. There's been a cadre of Michigan authors who will be available to our library patrons on March 1st. This is pretty cool, to meet and greet their readers and talk about their books. The authors' presentations will begin at 1:30 p.m. And this program is presented by the Friends of the Library, and no registration is required. And then here's the Did You Know About the Library offers free live online tutoring. Tutor.com specializes in tutoring from kindergarten through college. Not a student? No worries. Tutor.com also assists with resume writing, additional support for job seekers, and guess what? All you need is a library card. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
You know, thank you, Mr. Frederick. As I was coming here, I said to my daughters, you know, it was your mother's 100th birthday, and they remembered fondly being at St. Paul's, you know, passing out literature for their dad.
Working the polls.
And your mother being at the poll, and how kind and enjoyed they had that day with your mother. She was there the whole time, or basically the whole time, and they remember fondly. It was nice.
Great.
So,
That's great. I appreciate you telling me that. That's huge.
It's a good
Thank you.
story. Mr. Vitale.
Yeah, you know what? You actually brought to mind something I maybe just wanted to push out of my memory with regard to the frozen water mains. First of all, great job by DPW. We get the notifications when there's the breaks, and it's definitely a job that's not for everyone to go out in this kind of temperatures and outdoor labor. But I actually got a late night phone call from a resident at 9:30 at night. People can't believe that we actually get these kind of phone calls. And had a resident that was mad that their water had been shut off because there was a water main break, and they were in the middle of washing dishes. And their dishwasher suddenly was without water, and it was going to burn out. Was the city going to pay for it? And, you know.
I got that call too.
Oh, you did? Well, I don't know how you ended it, but I eventually just said, I'll tell you what, you send me the bill when it's if you get somebody to say it's burned out, and I'll buy a new dishwasher. And
Okay, I didn't say that, but okay.
You maybe had more tact than I did, but anyways, so let's try to cut these guys some slack out there. There's not a lot of people that would do that, and, you know, always try to remember really what could be your situation. We saw in Southwest Detroit, those poor people that were flooded out of their houses, cars strapped in ice. They're having to live elsewhere.
Basements full of water.
Basements full of water. So thank God our DPW is, you know, on the job and doing what it needs to do. One other thing too I'm going to mention, because it didn't get brought up about that house move. I'll be honest with you. When I saw the bricks come off the house, I knew that house was going to get moved. But that's more because I've been around, I've seen house moves done and things like that before. And I know that once we assign it to a demolition company, it's like we put trash out on the curb, basically. If somebody comes along and wants to repurpose it, it's almost abandoned property at that point. When they have the salvage rights to it, they salvage it any way they want to. I did watch it get done. My kids got a great kick out of seeing a house getting driven down the street. And I got to say, I was surprised at how fast they actually moved that house. Police provide an escort, and I know they're getting compensated for their overtime efforts. They're going to get reimbursed, so the city's not anything on the hook for that. Guys riding the roof, pushing up the power lines and everything like that, but amazingly quick to do it. And here's the other great thing about it. Kept a whole house out of a dumpster, out of a landfill, and shows up on the city tax register as in terms of Headley Prop A purposes, that's a new house.
Uncapped?
Yeah, that's just new money, like a brand new build. So, kind of a win-win, really. So I just wanted to bring that up. We are going to get tax revenue out of that and may potentially even see some savings on that demo cost. I know that was mentioned. So that was all I had.
All right, thank you. City manager report?
No report.
Audience participation, anyone? Yes, Steve? And accept my apologies for not bringing you up. Next time, please come right up. We'll get you right up in the front. I apologize. Once the meeting started, I couldn't really do that, but
That's
accept
okay.
my apologies.
Thank you.
And next time, we'll put you right up in the front and you can get right out of here. So sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Walby, and good evening, members of the council. Mr. Karen, thank you for the shout out. I can also honestly say I attended a birthday party during a 3.5-hour city council meeting. Really
There's still
excited that
cake.
I was able to be part of this meeting, and I've learned so much about your city. My name is Mai Song. I'm really honored to formally introduce myself to you as one of your new state reps. Due to the redistricting last year, residents who live between 10.5 and 12 Mile are now part of the 13th House District, and I can say I didn't draw those lines, but certainly, excited to represent the residents of St. Clair Shores. I was a Macomb County Commissioner prior to serving in the State House, and so I was able to be a part of the board that approved the $40 million in ARPA funds, which I understand 20 million of that is going towards the construction of the sewer project, and so I'm really excited to see that funding going towards such a important and transformative project here that will benefit the entire region, and to also reduce those CSOs that Commissioner Miller talks about. We are a part of a bipartisan group in Macomb County where we have been meeting with EGLE and other stakeholders in Oakland County as well to help address some of these issues. I live in Warren at 14 and Hoover, so right on the corner of the Red Run. And so I'm very familiar with the situation from my time on the board, but also as a resident as well, and how it's impacted residents. As your state representative, I want to let you know my office is always open to help assist in any way in initiatives or projects that you may have, and to also assist your residents with state resources and departments. So please reach out to my office if I can be of any assistance. And while that I'm here, I would love to give you an update on what's going on in Lansing. We have been in the new 103rd legislature for over 30 days now. We've voted on 2 major pieces of legislation in the House that would address the minimum wage and the tipped wage and the earned sick time, which, by the way, I think the one thing that will impact your residents and business owners the most is the fact that the Supreme Court ruling will go into effect this Friday, February 21st. I will be in Lansing first thing tomorrow morning, probably through Friday, working in the House and with negotiations with the Senate. Last week, the Senate did pass a bill to address the minimum wage, but there's still some conversations that we need to have on the other parts of the ruling that will be really impactful. And that will impact workers and business owners, and I can't guarantee that those changes will be made by Friday, and so anticipate that these changes that the Supreme Court had ruled on last year will actually have to go into effect this Friday. Whenever we pass a bill in the House, it does have to sit for 5 days before it goes to the Senate. So even if we were able to pass anything this Friday, it wouldn't be until Wednesday next week when we would actually have something that would pass through the Senate or the House in order for the governor to sign into law. And next Wednesday is the governor's State of the State address, so I personally don't see her signing a bill on that day, although, anything is possible. Wanted to also let you know that there are 9 bills that were passed last December in the House and the Senate that haven't reached the governor's desk. And as a result of that, the Senate has decided to sue the House in order to compel our current leader to present those bills. And so there's some political things going on in the background, unfortunately. I think the 2 pieces of bill that would impact St. Clair Shores and other residents would be HB 6058, which is a bill that I sponsored that would lower health insurance for public employees. And then the other is making sure that corrections officers are added to the state pension system. So those are some updates, but again, really excited that I was able to come here today and to meet all of you formally. And again, my office is here and ready to help support in any way that I can. So please reach out to me. Thank you.
Okay, and once again, get with me and we'll put you right up front when you want to have another
thank
update.
you.
We appreciate it. Thank
No
you so
problem.
much.
Thank
Anyone else? With that, we'll go to mayor's comments, and one brief one, it is next year's the 75th anniversary of the city of St. Clair Shores being chartered here, so we're going to work on getting a committee together and have some, events here in 2026. So we got to do that this year to plan for the event for the 75th anniversary. So that'll be fun planning this year for next year. So with that, we'll need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Support. Moved by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Karen. All in favor? Aye. All opposed. Good night.